2, 1. What up, folks? Once again, it is indeed your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. We're going to be asking a simple question there. We're going to keep it simple. I'm a simple man, and hopefully most of my viewers are the same way as well. So a simple question. You see the live is titled, who are you voting for and why? We're going to ask a few questions in detail in regards to that question, but it's all going to revolve around that simple question. Who you got this election and why are you voting for them? But to clarify it a tad, I want to know your biggest policies that maybe are being promised by your candidate of choice, your biggest concerns, your biggest hopes. What is the candidates promising that is leading you to vote for either Kamala or Trump? What are the biggest policies that's leading you to vote for one or the other? Now, make no mistake about it, they have some similar policies. We know that Kamala Harris recently stole Trump's campaign promise of excluding tips from being taxed by folks in the service industry. So they do have some similar promises. But what are your campaign, what is your candidate of choice promising that is leading you to pick them over the other candidate? Also, do you have any concerns from the opposing candidate, maybe promises that they are making that you might believe are bad for this country, that may lead this country in the wrong direction? Let's say, for instance, you're supporting Trump and you're hearing Kamala Harris making campaign promises that you're already like, that don't make sense. That's going to hurt this country. That's going to destroy us. Maybe it'll lead us into a depression. Maybe lead us open to our adversaries in times of war. We're talking about campaign promises that you may be concerned with coming from the other side. So we're asking, what policies do you favor coming from your candidate of choice? And what is concerning you coming from the opposition? And last but not least, all of this is in one question, by the way, because we have a second one, but all of this is in one question. In addition to policies and concerns, let's talk about the lies. Let's talk about blatant, flat out dishonesty. Are you hearing campaign promises, perhaps from your adversarial candidate, that you know is a lie? There's no way in hell they're going to be able to do that when they get elected. They are promising something that is flat out a lie simply to get in office. That's what we're going to talk about: campaign promises, concerns, and lies. Last but not least, in regards to the second question, you know we always have two topics for every live. I just want to ask this and get your humble opinion on it, because it's undoubtedly, it undoubtedly seems true. And just want to hear from the folks, why do you think this is? Now, we're talking about Trump versus Kamala. Now, we know some 3 weeks or so ago, Biden dropped out as the nominee and pretty much handed the reins to Kamala Harris. So what I want to ask is, because every poll is suggesting that Kamala Harris is far more competitive against Trump than Biden was. Simple question. Why is that happening? Why is Kamala Harris more competitive against Trump than Biden? Simple question. So those are the two topics we're going to discuss today. You know how the program is ran. We are MAGA friendly. Been that way since day one, always will be. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. So when you're on the program, doesn't matter if you're in the comment section or if you're speaking to yours truly directly. You don't have to agree with a damn individual on the program. It's all about free speech. If you're critical of anyone in the comment section or even yours truly, that's how free speech works. You're not going to get censored here. So that's how we do the program. If you enjoy that, you favor that type of dialogue, follow the program on TikTok, a subscription on YouTube, if you will. Gregory, yeah! They even started the program off right with the hat mustache. So we're talking about policies, concerns, and lies in politics. So looking in the comments, she wanted to show how old she is. William Gonzalez, I don't quite get what you're saying there. Indian, I just want to know, wow, these comments coming in. I just want to know one thing. What do you think will be the relation between America and India when Trump takes the lead? I don't think it'll change at all. Thank you for the hat and mustache, Gabriel, supporting the program. Thank you. Now, I understand Kamala Harris, her parents, Indian heritage and all of that. I get that, but I don't believe the nation of India is going to have a difference in relationship with America if we don't elect Kamala Harris. I don't think it's going to change at all. Looking at the comments, why is Trump worried about federal immunity for police officers? Is it why is he worried about it? I haven't heard that, but we do know the feds are going after Trump, and we know Trump plans on going after the feds if he gets elected. Could be something to do with that. I haven't heard that. So going to the box. Thank you folks that are already tapping the screen. Start back. We got almost 500 already. So get the likes up to around 10,000 if you will. Helps out the FYP. Brings in more MAGA. You understand how the program works. I do appreciate that. Same on YouTube. Feel free to smash that like button. Starting out the program right away. Ask Mom. Good afternoon, Mom. Welcome to the program again.
Hey, Durden, it's Mama C here. I'm so glad to see you on live. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to have you back on. So we're talking about the biggest policies, concerns, and potentially lies from the different candidates. So I'm assuming now you're leaning right, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I would be what I truly consider would be like just conservative values, not right wing, not MAGA or anything like that. Just basic conservative values such as state to state rule and less federal government, less bureaucracy overall.
Now, when it comes to the opposing candidate, which in your case would be Kamala Harris, do you have any major concerns among the campaign promises that Kamala Harris is making that you might feel are not in the best interest of this country?
I'm concerned over her foreign policies. I'm concerned over her supposed arms embargo towards Israel. I'm concerned over her pro-Islam, pro-Palestine, pro-Iran ties. I'm concerned.
Wait. You said pro-Israel, pro-Palestine. You said she's in favor of both Israel and the Palestinians?
I'm saying she's saying that to get the votes. Okay. I'm saying that on August, I want to say it was the 9th. It was right around there. She had a rally in Detroit. Detroit ralliers, the protesters were saying, Kamala, you can't hide. We're not going to vote for the genocide. Bring them home. And it was pro-Israeli ralliers and protesters. And she said, look, unless you're going to sit there and say Trump should win, I'm speaking.
Yeah, I do remember. I do recall that.
That's how she chose to shut that down, right? She didn't give any credence to that. Well, it came out that an hour before the rally, who was she talking to? She was talking to pro-Islam, Hamas-leaning groups and promising them arms embargoes to limit the ways Israel could defend themselves. And then instantly, that later on that night, her person in charge of foreign affairs instantly took to action and said, we've always been pro-Israel. We've always done this. And that just started a whole chain of events reaction.
But here, let me ask you something in regards to the arms embargo that you're saying that Kamala Harris is proposing. Now, you're obviously stated you're leaning more towards Trump. Now, Trump has talked about being, America first, getting out of overseas conflicts and focusing on the citizens at home. So, do you feel confident that if Trump is elected, he's not going to impose an arms embargo himself? Do you think he's still going to keep supplying Israel with weapons if he's talking about focusing on America and getting out of overseas conflicts?
Well, I think just the fact that he, who is not even an elected official, met with Benjamin Netanyahu and had a strong alliance with him and his wife there at Key Largo or Miller-Largo, or however you say it. The fact that he invited them into his home speaks wonders to the fact that Ms. Harris couldn't even have been bothered to show up to listen to the speech in Congress as her being the deciding factor of who is the majority party. that to me really spoke volumes to how out of touch she is.
What about the
And I do
notion that
agree.
what about the notion that when that happened, as you're pointing out, she was at a funeral, a congresswoman that passed away. She was at a funeral. You said she should have skipped that funeral and went to meet with
No,
Netanyahu?
sir. Hold on. I hate to do it, but I'm gonna have to fact check you on that one.
Sure.
Because from what we were told, and from what I heard on MSNBC, CNN, and ABC, was that it was to go to sororities on campus to start getting out the vote for the younger female demographic. So it wasn't the fact that she was at a funeral; it was the fact that she was choosing to speak on college campuses instead.
Yeah, I have not heard that. I would have to look into that. I was under the impression she was at a funeral because I know.
No, if you're at a funeral, you're at a funeral. I mean, my goodness, yes, your friend passed away, but the amount that it took to get her to even come back to the table with this man speaks volumes. And again, I don't think that, we should be focused on just what our people think. I think we too need to look, as the world leaders, we need to look to our allies. And if you watch, you can go on TikTok, you can go on this platform, YouTube, and others, and you can see rallies in the streets begging us to vote for Trump to restore world order.
How does that? Wait,
praying for a Harris election.
Let me interrupt to say this. If he's talking about focusing on America first and getting out of overseas conflicts, why are folks suggesting that he's going to fix things that are happening around the world when he's saying he's going to get out of that?
Well, let me ask you this. If your house is on fire, but so is your neighbor's, who gets the hose? We can't help our neighbor the same way when you're on an airline. What's the first thing they tell you?
Yeah.
Don't worry about, you don't put on someone else's air mask before you put on your own. We have to get our stuff straightened out here. We talked about it last night, sir, about how the inner cities especially, they need help.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm pointing out, you said people were in the street talking about they want Trump to fix things overseas, but you're admitting when your house is on fire, we're only going to worry about our house. So they're chanting for Trump to do something he's already stated he's not going to do.
They're not shouting for Trump to do something. They are begging that Harris doesn't get elected. They're not.
Yeah, but why? But what did you just say they were saying about fixing things around the world?
Yeah, so the thing is, when Trump was in office, we had security, right? People took order from us, right? So Putin already, and everybody keeps, bringing up Russia and all this, so, I'll bite the bullet. So his big thing was when he heard that Trump had a plan to end Ukraine-Russian deaths, right? And
how does he do that if he's going to get out of overseas conflicts? Why is he continuing to promise he's going to end all of these conflicts that are overseas?
Well, sir, we're in how many proxy wars? Don't you think that the best way for us to be able to bring our men and women overseas out and for us to get our nose out of that is to help end it?
Our men and women are not in it. Well, some of the things he's promising, Mama C, is he's promising to end the Ukrainian-Russian war, and he promised that October 7th would not have happened. Those things have nothing to do with America. So if you're going to get out of overseas conflicts, why are you suggesting you're going to end this stuff?
Well, I have to disagree just a little bit with the fact that, yes, okay, as we've said, we need to put America first. But the other thing that we have to look into is we have to protect ourselves, and we do have to de-escalate, and we have to pull out of conflicts that aren't our own. Now, I will say, as far as the Russia conflict, we did hold stake there. Right? The prisoner trade that we got that everybody's saying, oh, Trump congratulated him on. Yeah, in a very sarcastic way, he did. We finally got our people home after how long? But what did it cost us? People who did harm to our country were released back into custody just so they could reharm us again. That is not a trade. That is not a trade. That is cutting off your nose to spite your face, and that is not thinking ahead.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I guess the only thing that seems conflicted to me is he's promising to get us out of overseas conflicts and only focus on home, but yet he's constantly saying that if I'm president, there's not going to be any more overseas conflicts, and I'm going to stop wars that are happening. So you're either going to get out of it or you're going to get in it and control it. You can't do both at the same time.
You're right, but the problem that you're kind of missing to see a little bit is the fact that we're already in it, and so we have to stop it to get away from it because we're already in. We're already there. So we have to end it before we can see peace.
All right, fair enough. I do got one more question I want to ask you before I move it on.
Yeah, of course.
Big Rooster Show, YouTube, ask her who took orders from us. You said when Trump was in office, people were taking orders from us. Give me some examples of what you mean.
When Trump was in office, people were taking
worldwide. Yeah, some other nations, you said people were taking orders from us. In other words, Trump was in control, and other nations knew, not to mess with America. They were taking orders from us. That's what you said, essentially verbatim. What did you mean by that?
What did Trump tell Iran? What did Trump tell anybody? That he was going to bomb the SHIT out of them? Kamala says, don't come. He says, do it, and there's going to be consequences, right? So he just has that symbol of strength, and our allies work with him and not against him. How many times has White House calls from the Biden administration gone unanswered or ignored? Whereas like him, love him, or leave him. And I am not a Trumper or a Trumpette. I'm just, a typical conservative, or what I would consider a moderate conservative. And like him, love him, hate him for whatever he got, you have to really understand, and you're dishonest if you say otherwise, that he didn't have a handle on things, and we weren't given respect by our allies, who are now to the point of shunning us.
All right, fair point. And what you're saying is quite common. A lot of folks have the same opinion as you, certainly on the right. Let me ask you this question, though. Just your personal analysis. The floor is yours. You can say whatever you want without any concern of being blocked, banned, or censored. Who won the 2020 election?
2020 election?
The last one we had between Trump and Biden.
Shoot, buddy. Yeah, you're going to throw a bomb out me at you.
All I need is a name. I don't want to sound like a detective, but give me a name.
I honestly think that popular vote, it would have gone Biden, simply because of the fact that when the overturn of Roe v. Wade happened, they effed up the language on it, and you lost so many women and feminist support. I
don't know which president's name is that long. Who won the 2020 election? You're giving me a lot of experience. Who won 2020?
2020 popular vote. I'm gonna side with Biden.
I didn't ask you about the popular vote. I didn't ask you about the popular vote. Who won the election?
Biden did. He took office, hon.
So he won.
Yeah. You know what? My country spoke. I'm gonna follow what my flag did, and the people of my country elected him, and he won the election.
Okay, so he won legitimately. He won legitimately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I never argued that.
Okay, it sounded like you were there for a minute. January 6th, what happened?
January 6th, I think, was the fact that when you are ticked off and you say, hey, things aren't adding up, and you want to go talk to the people who you elected, that's what we did. Now, like it or love it or leave it for, and again, you're asking me a lot of MAGA questions for me not being MAGA, but
hey, I'm trying to. Now, you said that they were ticked off. I believe I saw many signs saying stop the steal on January 6th. According to you, Biden won legitimately. So what were they trying to stop from being stolen?
Well, we saw it. We saw it a lot in my own state, and even my own neighbors saw that, mailmen they would look down at the envelope, and just right here in my backyard with my 6 neighbors in the apartment building, we had a big hoopla out here because people were finding their absentee ballots, their mail-in ballots were chucked to the side. And
so what were they trying to stop from being stolen?
I think they were trying to stop the fact that people were just flagrantly not counting the vote, and rather than doing their job, they saw an opportunity to try to, make a statement or see something. And the people who did, such as people, if you steal your mail-in ballots and things like that, you stole a right from an American citizen, and a brother and sister under this flag should not be treating one another that way.
All right, so you believe they were trying to stop the election from being stolen?
Yeah, I think they were just ticked off, needing an outlet, and they had a right for their voices to be heard.
So Trump is still currently, as we speak, stating that in 2020 he won by a landslide. Why does your opinion and his differ so much?
Because I'm just kind of over it. I mean, why are we looking so far back to the past where we're going to trip ourselves up on? If we keep looking to the past and looking into the, hey, this is what could have happened, should have happened. No progress.
But is he being honest when even though it's part of the past? You and I agree on that. But is he being honest, or is he lying when he says he won by a landslide?
I think that is his personal viewpoint, and so that is to him speaking the truth. My personal
Mom, let me see. My personal viewpoint is the sky is purple. Is that true, or is that being dishonest? Doesn't matter if it's how I feel. You can feel a way that's a lie. He said he won by a landslide. Is that true? Is that true?
If you start spreading that rhetoric, you're going to have a whole bunch of other problems on your hands.
Well, as long as it doesn't end with the lynching of the vice president. So what I'm asking you, though, is that true, or is it a lie when he says he won by a landslide?
I think it's something he believes.
Is it true, or is it a lie? It doesn't matter what he believes. It's either true or it's a lie.
I'm going to answer your question with a question for you, being the liberal on this.
All right, let's have it.
Clinton, what did Hillary Clinton say the first 2 weeks after the 2016 election?
She believed the election was stolen from her, and history will dictate that was a lie. Now, my answer to my question, feel free to state it.
Yeah, I don't believe that he won the election. I don't. I believe that he thinks that. And, hey, I don't think that it is enough of an issue for me, because, again, not MAGA. It's not enough of an issue for me to be espousing one way or another. Do I think the election was stolen? No. Do I think some shady shit happened? Absolutely I do. But was it enough to overturn? I don't think so, because of the fact that if you're relying on 40,000 votes of the popular ballot to be elected, maybe just take the L, regroup like he did now, and come back stronger and come back.
Well, he hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't regrouped, because you're admitting he's still saying it. So just to get clarity,
that's not what I would have done.
Okay.
I would have stopped. I would have stopped him looking back, and I would have said, at a certain point, just end the rhetoric. It's not doing you any favors. Let's just focus on now.
100%. So I got to move it on, but just to get clarity. So when he says he won by a landslide, is that true, or is that a lie?
I don't think it's true.
Okay. All right. There we go. We're getting somewhere. Mama C, it wasn't easy, but I appreciate you coming through.
Oh, darling, anytime. Love you lots.
Absolute. Same. Moving the program on, Mama C, it is always a good talk. That's what his vice president said. Yeah. Let's just forget about all the insurrections, all that insurrection stuff. Okay. All right. I see that in the comments. Tap the screen, get the likes up to about 25,000. The program is now in full swing. The question we're asking is, who are you voting for and why? And then as a follow-up, what are your three biggest policies that you favor being offered by your candidate? Or better yet, what are your major concerns in regards to policies being offered by your adversary that maybe you think are going to lead the country down the wrong direction? And last but not least, lies. Do you hear your adversarial candidate, the one you're not going to vote for, making promises that you're clear right now before the election is a lie, knowing damn well that if they win, the promise they're making is a lie. It will never be delivered. That's what we're talking about. Tap the screen, get the likes up to about 30,000. Over 700 of you folks in here, a lot of lazy thumbs, but I'm going to solicit it anyway. Going to the box, appreciate you folks that are tapping the screen. Uncle Lucas, one of my subscribers, I always give him first digs. Good afternoon, Uncle Lucas.
Hey, what's up, handsome?
Not much at all. Hanging out like Mike Pence on January 6th. So,
hey,
who you got?
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much. You ever heard that?
No, I haven't. But I think I know what you're talking about.
That's from Hamlet. The last lady kept saying, I'm not MAGA. Yeah. I'm not MAGA. She was 100% MAGA. Just accept it.
Well, I will give her credit, because she was savvy enough to realize the questioning was being aimed at her to basically, prove that she was MAGA. And I think, she definitely was MAGA. That's what the questioning was doing.
The questioning wasn't hard. Who won the last election?
Right.
All she had to say was Joe Biden. She was bringing up Hillary Clinton, some dog, some mailman. It's crazy. Just saying, Joe Biden won. We didn't win that one, but we'll get the next one.
So let me, in regards to that last call I had, because you're right, some folks, not necessarily referencing my last caller, but some folks, you do realize that maybe MAGA, and they'll say I'm independent or what. Why do you think some folks are a bit hesitant to come out and just say, look, I got Trump, I support Trump, I'm MAGA?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting one for me too, because usually when MAGA comes on, they're MAGA. Like, you can tell it doesn't matter what Trump does. He could kill a little baby on Fifth Avenue. That must have been a dirty Democrat. So it doesn't matter, because Trump is Jesus. So
wait, you don't see MAGAs elevating Trump to be like God-like, do you?
I mean, you hadn't seen the memes where it's Jesus holding Trump's shoulders, and that Jesus is protecting President Trump. He is sent by the Savior to bring back and restore order to this godforsaken country.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up, because I know when Obama was in office, folks like Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity used to call him the Messiah and the Chosen One. And I don't remember memes like that about Obama ever being around. You know, with him with God and Jesus touching his shoulder. I don't remember seeing a lot of that during the Obama time at all.
Look, I remember back when Obama was getting elected, my wife sent me an Obama song. You remember that? Obama, Obama. I thought that was goofy. I don't like it when we elevate politicians to messianic figures.
Yeah.
You know, where they can do no wrong, they can't be held accountable. That's all I want to see. And that's what scares me about MAGA, is that they'll piece in part every politician's words, from Hillary Clinton to Kamala Harris, but when it comes to Trump, they give him passes.
The thing about it is they actually suggest that the liberals are the ones that do that. They piece together Trump's words, take them out of context to make it fit something. They say the liberals are the one doing that.
If he wants to grab America by the pussy again. So,
that's locker room talk.
That he says, right?
That's locker room talk.
That's why he's running, right? Is he wants to grab us by again. Where the sun don't shine. So, look, one thing I can say about the liberals is they're probably too rough on their politicians. They're really rough on their politicians. Think about Joe Biden. Look, you got Trump feeling sad for Joe Biden. He's like, I don't like the way they treated him.
That's a really good point. I do agree that the liberals are far more likely to eat their own and cannibalize than the right is. Because we had George Santos in New York that literally lied about everything he was, and they were holding on to that guy. Whereas on the left, they got rid of Menendez pretty damn quick. They got rid of Al Franken. They get rid of theirs on the left real quick, and the right be like, you kind of, So I do agree with that.
That's our guy. It doesn't matter who he grabbed, the sexual assault, 34 felonies, we love him. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter. I think that only applies for Trump, though. We'll see.
The felonies were allegedly a witch hunt, though. Lucas, what say you?
He was convicted. Honestly, if you look into it, it was kind of BS. I will give the Republicans that. The fact that a state is charging him with a federal election crime, basically miscategorizing funds, and he paid for his porn star lover, and he did a payoff of that. It was kind of BS. However, he's still a felon. The same thing happened to Hunter. Hunter got caught up in that case. He should have been caught up in that case. That's politics. That's what happened.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I will say the same thing. If you're going to believe that what happened to Trump was bullshit. What happened to Hunter Biden the same way. I mean, he lied on the gun application, didn't commit any crimes with the gun, got rid of the gun. Yeah, same thing. If Hunter Biden was Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk's son or somebody like that, they would have made a deal behind the scenes, paid off a fine, and that would have been the end of that. So I do agree that Trump likely got charged with crimes he probably would not have been charged with had he not been running for president. And Hunter Biden is a victim of the same sort. So I want to ask you this also. Why is Kamala Harris, unlike Biden, so competitive with Trump? What is it about her?
You know, honestly, I think Democrats would Biden's old. I mean, that's just the way it is. He's an old man. You can see it on the screen. He's struggling. And, I mean, the office is hard for a young man. You seen Obama when he went in 2008, he came out in 2016.
Gray.
All gray. It's a hard office. So, and like you said, and like we were agreeing, the left eats their own. So, I think they were so happy to get behind somebody. Now we'll see when she comes out with her policies if they're still going to be like that, because the left eats their own. So when what
is Kamala Harris? Because you hear folks say she has no policies. What do you believe she's promising that you favor? Because I'm assuming you're voting for her. So what is she talking about that's making you say this is the one?
And this is where I agree with the right. She doesn't have any stance.
Damn.
The only thing we can piece together are little snippets. Like she doesn't have any policies listed out on her page.
So why you voting for her?
Oh, who said I'm voting for her? But I'm voting for her.
Why? You're voting, but you're voting for a woman you admit has no policies. Explain that.
Because Trump scares me more. It's really a vote against Trump. If the Republicans would actually get their ish together and put up a reasonable Republican to run in office, I think they could have taken the White House. They could take the White House. They could probably take the Senate and the House. But when they put Trump up, it brings so much baggage back with him. It's not reasonable. So she'll get a lot of votes. She'll probably get 15% of votes just because she's not Trump and she's not Biden.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it's higher than 15%. Let me ask you this before I let you go. If it turned out to be Nikki Haley versus Kamala Harris, what would you do?
Oh man, that'd be a rough election for Kamala. She would have to step it up more. I think she would have to come out with policies and clear positions, and Nikki Haley probably could have beat her, but because Republicans are stuck on MAGA. And they got to have Trump. Only Trump can fix it. He's the best person in the world. Now this is the position we're in. Trump could have picked Nikki Haley as a VP, and that would have been a better choice than JD Vance. But you can't pick somebody you've been calling a bird brain all over the country. Yes, you can. Look. Kamala hit Biden on the campaign trail. Yeah. But you know what? Biden is an adult, so he said, you know what? Let me put this aside and let's win his office. So he picked Kamala because during the primaries, I think Kamala called Biden racist or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
she did allude to him being racist. Yeah, she did make it sound like he was insensitive at the very least to racism. I mean, you're correct. They came together. So you do believe Nikki Haley could have possibly beat Kamala Harris?
All this excitement that Kamala's getting right now, it wouldn't have been there if Kamala was the VP on the right. So, look, financially, I should be voting for Trump because that flat tax, I could probably save $25,000 in 1 year just with the flat tax. But my problem is that I'll be doing well, but nobody else will, or a lot of people won't be doing well.
$25,000 in your pocket, and you're going against the guy that can give it to you. What is so bad about Trump, in your opinion?
Well, it's what they represent. I don't believe in trickle-down economics. I really
well, shit, if it's going to put $25,000 in your pocket, it sounds like it's working.
Hey, look, no. See, look, what's going to happen with that $25,000? I'm just going to put it in my 401k. I'm just going to put it in a mutual fund. I'm just going to put it somewhere else. I'm not going to go buy more pants. I'm not going to buy more milk. I only can consume so much, right?
You
And
sure
I
you're
think
not
that's,
vote? You sure you're not voting against your own best interests?
oh, I know I am. I 100% know I am, because what I find is I do better under Democrats, but I pay more taxes. I probably do worse financially under Republicans, but I pay less taxes.
I don't know.
And I think
You need to send me your address so I can send you a MAGA hat, man. I think you're on the right side.
I'm just looking at it objectively, like financial statements. I was looking at the Trump years. I was looking at my tax returns versus the Biden years. Yeah, I've made a lot of money this year, but I paid a lot of taxes. But back during the Trump years, I made less money, but I paid less taxes. So, it all evens out.
I don't know. You're talking about high taxes under Biden. You really sound like a MAGA commercial, man. I don't know. You need to rethink it. I got to move it on, Lucas. Until
All right,
then,
man, take it easy.
let me know if you get that MAGA hat. Appreciate you coming through.
All right, bye.
All right. Moving on with the program. By the way, tap the screen, get the likes up to about 45. You guys are really slow on TikTok. Normally about 50. We've been about 50 right now. It's a lot of you folks that are not tapping the screen on TikTok. Appreciate you folks on YouTube. I want to talk about a couple super chats. RGB says Trump Alliance is the one that will line his pocket. I'd have to have you explain in detail what alliance is Trump seeking or getting involved in is going to make him richer. I can come up with a few virtual answers myself, but I'd like to hear from you. Ace Ventura, good movie. The fact that they called Kamala Harris a DEI hire says it all. And there is no shortage of folks referring to Kamala Harris as a DEI hire. My humble opinion about it is, what's so big of a deal about it? That's kind of the American way, a DEI hire. I mean, isn't that kind of what we do in this country? I don't know why that. Wow! Alter ego with the galaxy, Denkow. Wow, you guys are nice. Thank you very much. Caught me off guard with that. Wow, a galaxy. Shout out to you in Denkow. Wow. Going to the box. I bet you wouldn't do it. Have a woman like that for hire. What do you mean? You bet I wouldn't do it. Have a woman like that for hire. I don't quite get the. Like I said, folks, we don't block, ban, or censor. State the point and make it a little clearer, because I don't quite get what you're suggesting that I would not do. Floor is yours. I'll certainly respond to it. Thank you for the hat mustache. I cannot. As that says, Bay a real music mogul. I think that what that says. Bay Area real. Thank you. Appreciate the hat mustache. Going back to the box. If I can bring it up, and that is Denkow. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program, Denkow. So we're talking about Kamala is obviously competitive in regards to Biden. Why is Kamala doing better against Trump than Biden was? A little to the left? I think that says that. Thank you. Appreciate for that gravity. Why is Kamala so much more competitive than Biden was? Denkow.
We know most of the people who were having criticisms of Biden were saying it was because of his age. Yeah. Now you eliminate that point, there's so many more people that can gather around and say, look, I can get behind this, because they liked his policies. They believed that they did better for the American people. So if you take the main criticism away, then what's to stop people from going ahead and
is that? But I have to ask: is that all Kamala has going for her? Is that she's younger? What is she about?
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that was the main criticism.
Right.
So you take that off the table, and we don't necessarily have all of her personal opinions, which she's supposed to be rolling out her economic agenda, I think, tomorrow. They don't have no reason to reject her now if age was the main factor.
I get the age thing, but at the end of the day, you could have a young idiot in there too. I mean, you make it sound like the Democrats, the primary reason they're voting for is simply because she's younger. Is the bar that low for the Democratic Party to just give us somebody younger and we're good? Because you heard my last guess suggesting that a lot of Kamala votes are going to be simply, we don't like Trump. Nothing to do with who Kamala is. It's just we don't like Trump.
Well, look, we good with that. Remember, I was one of the people saying, the blue liquid and the last rights. I was one of those people. So now we have opened it up to a lot more people for whatever their reason is, because of her ethnicity, because she's young, because she can have a conversation.
What does her ethnicity have to do? You're making it sound like she is indeed a DEI hire.
Well, I mean, if you go according to the definition, yes. I mean, we know that she was hired partly because of her ethnicity. He said he wanted to hire somebody. He wanted to give somebody an opportunity to break a glass ceiling that we have in this country. So yes, technically it is. But then we could turn around and say Walls is a DEI hire too, because he, she picked him because she needed the Midwest, white, white.
But does that make him? Let's just be clear. You're African American, and so am I. If you heard somebody say, my next hire is going to be a white man, the African American community would go apeshit. So when Biden announced he was going to look to hire a woman of color, is that not racist?
No, because the difference is when somebody says that about a person that's already at the top of the patriarchal, standing. Saying that is like, what is the point in saying something like that about a white man? When we're talking about making history, we're talking about including more people into the political discussion, the discourse. Like, that's two different things.
Here's what I don't get. You can't announce that you're deliberately hiring a white male because everybody go ape shit. But if you deliberately announce you're hiring a black person, they don't. And you're saying you don't see any issue with that?
I'm saying that Trump was saying the same thing about hiring women. He said the same thing about how he was going to put women in these certain positions, and nobody batted an eye.
That's a good point. Well, he didn't say a person of color though. I don't think it's the woman. I think it's the person of color.
But that's picking a select group because of their gender. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's being biased on purpose to be able to include people in positions where they weren't historically allowed to participate. And if we don't do that, then how are we going to include those people? If somebody doesn't say, look, I'm doing something outside of the norm, I'm not going to keep going down the same road. I want to pick somebody who is qualified but would normally be overlooked because of their color. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that.
Your response sounds like what Ace Ventura on YouTube is saying. DEI hire absolutely does not mean they're incapable of doing the job. It's a rule to promote fairness. That's what it sounds like you're alluding to as well. That it's not saying that she's incapable. It's saying what you said. If we don't do it this way, she'll never get picked.
Right, and it's the same way when they do it for schools and the stuff that they're trying to shoot down now. But those things that allow these colleges to pick from a select group of minorities was created because otherwise they wouldn't get in.
But then I have to ask you this: if I'm a white man and I'm qualified for a job, and I go up against a black man or a black woman. And they, just to be fair, they give the job to her, even though I may be qualified or maybe even more qualified than her. How am I supposed to take that?
That's not what the affirmative action and that's not what these programs are doing. What they're saying is we got a group of people that are equally as talented, but we want to now allow these minorities that wouldn't otherwise get in these positions. They're equal. They're not.
So you're sure that when we because obviously the Supreme Court has recently gotten rid of affirmative action, but you're saying during the era of affirmative action, any minority that got the job was equally qualified to any non-minority that they passed up. They were equally qualified.
Right. Well, that was, the people sitting behind the desk making the decisions are ultimately going to be the ones to say that.
Yeah.
But that's what the thing was set up behind. If you got two students and both of them are 4.0s, but you got this one student that comes from this lower income area, and then you got a 4.0 in this other upscale area, okay, and then you got like 80 or 90% of the classes coming from this upper area. Why not take these people with equal academic achievements and say, we got to start letting some of these people from these lower economic areas get in the mix so they can start bringing up their society, their loved ones, their people around them.
I understand. I think the biggest complaint is if you are a non-minority, you're like, damn, they had to start equalizing things under my watch, because to equalize the system, the current crop of non-minorities are going to be the ones that have to take a back seat to undo all of the benefits that maybe their ancestors enjoyed. So they're like, I didn't have nothing to do with what my ancestor did, but now I got to pay the price because of what they got away with for generation after generation. So
and I get it. I get that. I try to look at it from, the opposition's point of view. I get it that they're looking at it like that. But they got to go down into root cause. Why did we have to put these things into place in the first place?
It's challenging. So let me ask you, in regards to the actual topic we're discussing, in regards to, let's just say, lies or concerns. Now, you voting Kamala, as you pointed out, you'd vote for anybody, even if they had the guy's head in a jar of blue liquid over Trump. So what are your biggest concerns about Trump? Is he promising something that you might feel is bad for America, or just an outright campaign promise that's a lie? What is it? Go ahead.
I'm listening. I'm just letting him talk, and I'm listening to what he's saying. I'm not making no preconceived, notions about what I'm listening to him. And the man said police immunity from prosecution in black areas. I'm listening to what he's saying. He's saying he's going to create a deportation force for 18 to 20 million people.
Wow.
And the only way he will be able to achieve that is if he creates some type of Gestapo where people are going to be able to go around and violate people's civil rights so we can find these 18 million people. I'm listening to what he's saying. He's saying he's going to allow Israel to get the job done, which means finish off or, evict this whole set of people from the country. I'm listening to what he's saying. He sat there on his thing the other day with Elon Musk and congratulated him for union busting and for being able to just fire people without even, if they say they're going to go on strike, you just cut them. You just cut them all. So he doesn't want people to collective bargain. I'm listening to the man. It's a bunch of stuff out here. People want to ignore it and twist themselves in a pretzel. And the other guy, the last guy, I didn't catch the whole conversation, but he's talking about, well, when Trump was in there, he was paying less taxes. And we still under the same tax plan that Trump instated. Nothing has changed by the Democrats about the tax law.
Yeah.
So the reason you're paying more is because he sunset middle-class tax cuts. And he allowed the upper class, the 1%ers, to maintain their tax benefits.
That is the fact. I got to move it on then, Kel, but one thing I will tell you for certain before I move it on, never let anybody tell you that the media has influenced your decision. You sound like a person that is a prime example of someone who has done their own work, done their research, and came to their conclusion, because it's based on what he's saying. It's not based on what somebody's telling you he's saying or some article you read. As you stated, I am listening to what he's saying. I can't hear a stronger conviction than that. Then, Cal, I got to move it on. Appreciate you coming through.
All right, good talk.
Great talk. Moving on with the program. I never vote for Trump. Never, ever. Why? Why would you never vote for Trump? I assume it may be because of what my last caller said. Adding all sorts of stuff too. Bless his heart. I don't quite get what that means. Never ever says a lot of these folks here. Trump is the great white hope. Really? I don't. I know how that works in boxing. Why is Trump the great white hope? Wow. Kind of think Trump is the Antichrist in jail. Why would you say? You guys are harsh on TikTok. Let me go to my YouTube side of the hour for a little bit of sanctity. I'll bet Biden. Wait a minute. I'll let Biden say it. Kamala, you ain't black. Or you say cackler. Cackler, okay? You know, they say that Kamala Harris has a cackle. By the way, Trump is hurting for content. He stated that Kamala Harris no longer laughs like that. She no longer cackles. It's hurting him because that's part of his material to use to make her look bad. Look, the woman is caught on. She know they're making fun of her laugh. They're mocking her laugh. She's not doing it. And Trump noticed it and said, she doesn't laugh like that anymore. I'm a bit sad because we would put that on the monitor behind us and make fun of it. But I do see in the comments, Paul says, I'll let Biden say it. Cackler, you ain't black. I don't think Biden will ever refer to Kamala Harris as being anything other than black. Just walked into one of these New York hotels, and you've already got 3,000 illegals that you can send home. I'll go back to the box. Certainly, folks, tap the screen, get the likes up to about 70,000. As I often say in the program, the immigrant issues they're dealing with in New York and in Chicago are not organic. I know we're blaming Biden for the open border that folks say he has, and now we're blaming Kamala for it. And I don't believe Biden or Kamala did a good job on the border. I'm not going to pretend like that, even though they came up with a bipartisan border bill like 3 years into their administration. But I will say this. I don't blame Biden or Kamala or the Democrats for what's happening in New York and Chicago with the immigration crisis. That is by hands of Governor Greg Abbott of Texas and to a lesser degree Ron DeSantis of Florida. That was done to illustrate that they didn't believe folks were addressing the border properly. So they deliberately set out to flood a town with immigrants. Notice all of the immigration crime, because we say that they're all, they're not sending us their best and brightest, they're sending us all these rapists and murderers and people that are flooding our cities and doing all this stuff wrong. Notice that it's only happening in New York and Chicago. If you watch right-wing media, the overwhelming majority of cases featuring an immigrant that has committed a crime against an American citizen is either happening in New York or in Chicago, the place where they sent them all to. I mean, it was literally designed to make that happen. But if that had not happened, Chicago and New York would not be flooded with immigrants. They would have went to various places all over the country, and it would not have been that big of an issue. If you notice, most Americans living throughout this country are not complaining about their cities being flooded with immigrants. Other than Chicago and New York, most cities are not, well, maybe Los Angeles, most cities are not dealing with it to that level because that was not done organically. That was done intentionally. So I don't blame what's going on in Chicago and New York on Biden or Kamala. That's Governor Greg Abbott did that intentionally. It worked. Shout out to Governor Greg Abbott. It did work. It drew a lot of, it put a big spotlight on the problem, and it did work. But yeah, pointing out the immigration issues in Chicago and New York and blaming that on Biden, no, that was a project that was done by design. Going to the box, does anybody believe in, I don't know what that says. Does anybody believe in aliens? I do. Illegal aliens invaded our country. When did an invasion become something where the people walk up to a government official and say, I want to seek asylum? When did a nation get invaded like that? I've never seen an invasion go like that. Let me go back to the box. Bay Area music mogul. Okay, now I'm reading that properly. Thanks for your support to the program. Bay Area music mogul. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey, good to have you on. So, why is Kamala so competitive with Biden? I mean, competitive with Trump over Biden. We saw Biden was losing big. All of a sudden, Kamala comes in, and she's running a close race, even leading in some states.
I mean, what the main thing I feel like it is, which was a very smart decision by the Democratic Party, was the fact that Trump spent billions of the campaign finances against Biden that was effectively null and void when they replaced him as the candidate. So all this negative press and all the negative stuff that he said and pushed and the narrative he created about Biden all went to shit. I don't know if I can say that, but went completely nowhere as soon as they replaced the candidate. So now it's like, okay, now they have to refocus. They can't get a refund on all the money they spent attacking Biden. So now it's like, okay, now the race has been effectively reset, and all the Democratic push and policies that they was able to create the narrative about Trump, that's going to stick, because the Republican Party would never replace Trump ever. They tried that in the primary, and he didn't have to show up to a single debate.
Yeah, they failed miserably trying to primary Trump. But what about the notion, because you said they replaced Biden with Kamala. A lot of folks on the right believe that was anti-democratic, that the liberals should have had a chance to vote. You can't just put her in the spotlight for a position she didn't earn. What say you?
I disagree, because she already kind of earned the position when she ran as vice president, right? And like a lot of people like to say, especially on the right, that like, oh, why didn't she do anything as vice president? Well, what has any vice president ever done? What have we seen Mike Pence do except, well, I'll give Mike Pence credit for stopping the insurrection against the United States that Trump led. I'll give Mike Pence great credit for that, but what else did Mike Pence do other than that?
So the thing that Mike Pence gets the most credit for, the Republicans don't even like.
Exactly.
So I'm assuming you're voting for Kamala?
Not happily. I would have preferred Bernie Sanders, you feel me? But I'll settle and vote for Kamala.
And well, if you were willing to vote for Bernie Sanders, then I'm assuming you would have voted for Biden. I mean, they're about the same age. Is Bernie older than Biden now? I mean, he might be older, is he?
He's a lot more coherent, and I like his policies a lot more. He was like our Democratic version of Trump, I would say, but a lot more popular, like this in terms of populism and being anti-establishment. But he was definitely a lot more liberal and left-leaning on his policies, which I love and support.
Do you think America is ready for somebody as progressive as Bernie Sanders? Because some folks are saying Tim Walz, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, her VP pick is very progressive like that as well. Do you think America is ready for somebody like that?
I would say America's ready, but the Democratic Party machine isn't. There's very establishment, and any anti-establishment figures they wouldn't really support and get behind like that with their campaign contributors. Because as we've seen, Bernie ran the campaign mostly financed by small donor supporters. Like, he didn't have any big company support him. The Democratic machine wasn't involved in them at all, and we saw that in effect when everybody dropped out and supported Joe Biden in the 2020 primary. We should be having President Bernie Sanders right now instead of Biden. But that's a conversation for another day.
So you think that maybe Hillary or maybe the Democratic Party cheated Bernie Sanders? By the way, you, sir, need coffee. Thank you for the subscription. I did want to point that out. So you believe that the Democrats may have cheated Bernie Sanders out of the game?
Maybe not cheated per se, because that's too harsh, but the Democratic establishment didn't get behind Bernie Sanders, and I don't think they ever would have. And when it comes to Democrats, like, a lot of Democrats are very older, and they're very much in line with the establishment, right? And Bernie was very anti-establishment. He was anti-big corporations. He wanted to gut the pharmaceutical.
Where have I heard that before recently? Anti-establishment wanted to gut the corporate. Where have I heard that recently? Anti-establishment. Sound like somebody else that's running for president.
Exactly. But unfortunately, I can't ever support Trump, because even while he may be anti-establishment, I feel like his quote of drain the swamp, I could refit that and use that against him. He doesn't want to drain the swamp. He wants to replace the swamp with him as the leader.
Damn.
I don't think he has any claims to really drain the swamp for real and like really end a lot of the stuff we see that we have a problem with in our government. He just wants to be the head of it himself.
Now, in regards to your favoritism for Bernie, who did you vote for in 2016? Did you end up voting for Hillary Clinton?
I sat out, and I feel like a lot of other Bernie Sanders sat that out as well, and that's how we ended up with President Trump.
I was just about to ask you that. Are you happy you sat out?
Negative.
Yeah. So in other words, your party, you're admitting it is you folks that gave Trump the job, and you may have led America down the wrong path.
Yeah, potentially for sure. But I feel like the main reason why I can't mess with Trump at all is because he has eroded trust in our public institutions, right? Like, if you ask any Trump supporter if they support the Department of Justice, if they support the court system, if they support the FBI, any public institution there is, they will say no, but we trust Donald Trump. Trump has pretty much lifted himself up to a role that we haven't seen since Mussolini, right? I'm not going to say the other person who ruled Germany, right?
Small mustache.
It's very similar to Mussolini.
I know you talking about Adolf.
Like, huh?
You talking about Adolf?
Yeah, Adolf. But Mussolini is kind of like this code of personality, which has never worked well and is very anti-American. When you can say you don't trust a single institution in this country except for one man.
How did he get? And I do agree that there are people who are like that, where they don't trust any of the government organizations, but they favor Trump. How do you think he got propelled to that level where he has more trust than really any other entity in this nation?
I feel like just like, his constant attacks on our institutions, right? Like, you could go back to January 6th where he said, oh, they're rigging it against me. And he's setting the stage for that again now by saying, oh, the crowd sizes are fake, even though there was 1,000 people there and everyone recorded on their phone and we could see all of that. So I feel like, that's easy to call cap and BS on because you could go to any of the people who's there at her, like, I think it was before a rally when she got off the plane, and it's like 1,000 people recording it. Each of them has social media pages you can go search and find out, and they all have proof that this crowd was not fake. But he's giving this context up, so like in case he loses, he could say, oh yeah, their crowds were fake, this was fake, all her support is fake. How did she win? Guys, we got to revolt. Guys, we got to go storm the Capitol again in 2024.
Wow.
We have to do something to stop the steal again.
Yeah, and I see somebody in the comments, I can't, Six-Pack says the picture was enhanced as it should around 10K. So there are folks who do believe that her crowd was artificial intelligence. People do believe that.
And that's insane. And because they have the trust in this one man, despite the countless people who were witnesses there, as we can see, there was thousands of witnesses. But because they have the trust in this one man, that supersedes everything.
Wow. That's a powerful position to be in, man. I need to be that. Shit. I got to move it on to the Bay Area. That is a real powerful position to be in, though, when you got folks that will believe you and no one else. You can't argue with that kind of power.
For most definitely, and I feel like that's the most dangerous and scary thing of it. Because, like, if one man can convince you the sky turned purple, even though we can all see it's blue, but you're going to run around saying the sky's purple because one man told you that, that's way too much power for one man, and frankly un-American. We revolted against kings in the American Revolution in 1776.
Well said. Bay Area, appreciate it. Come on back anytime.
Yep, right on. Have a good one.
You too. As the rapper Kanye West once said, no one man should have all that power. Ace Ventura, none of y'all applied for asylum with the Native Americans. It was more like a colonization, or they conquered the land. So you don't really have to seek asylum when you're there to take over the land. So, but I do get your point. But yeah, they did not seek asylum when it came to this country. And I do believe that none other than Christopher Columbus, I read this somewhere. He had a journal. And he stated in the journal how ignorant the Native Americans were, because they, you go to a foreign land, they used to exchange gifts. And I think the natives gave the settlers from England, Christopher Columbus involved, gave them some food or maybe some hide, buffalo hide and things they would be needing in the new land. And Christopher Columbus gave them a sword. And one of the Native Americans cut his hand on the sword, and Christopher Columbus put in his journal, these folks are so ignorant that they don't even know what weapons are. We gave him a sword. He's already cut his hand on it. And he stated that with 50 armed men, we could take over this whole place. I did read that. I'm not going to say it's, 100% valid, but it kind of sounds like it might be. But yeah, they were already contemplating conquering the new land the moment they arrived. So I'll leave it at that. But looking in the comments, says that is a whitewashed story. If you're going to whitewash the story, I don't think you'd put that in it. I don't think you would even put that in it. Looking in the comments, you can hear them now saying, I'm looking for true freedom. We need Trump as king. You think so? I don't know about that. I don't think. How many of you, by way of yes or no? I think I already know what MAGA's going to respond on this, but I'll throw it out there by way of yes or no. How many of you folks, by way of yes or no, think that MAGA would be okay with Trump serving more than one term? Maybe serving for the rest of his life? Maybe being allowed to appoint another leader without an election? By way of yes or no, how many of you folks believe that that's true? Because that's what the liberals are saying. Wow, a lot of folks on TikTok. This is definitely showing the difference in my audiences. On TikTok, a resounding amount of you folks are saying yes, and on YouTube, you guys are like, "What the fuck? No way in hell." It's crazy. All the yeses are on TikTok and all the no's are on YouTube. That is crazy. All right, I see in the comments, Yvonne says, "Hell no." I've heard MAGA say there's going to be a civil war if Trump doesn't win. Those people are insane. We may have to buy more guns because Harris will win. You know, I have heard something similar to that, and to me, it makes no sense. Why? I mean, if we have a civil unrest because Trump didn't win, or you believe the liberals stole the election, or what is the end point? In any war, there's a goal. There's something you're trying to achieve. What is the goal of a civil war if Trump loses? I don't understand what the purpose of it is going to be. And I will say this as well. There's a lot of countries around on this planet that have had a civil war, including our own. Look at how those countries are after the civil war has ended. I don't think even the winners of a civil war in this country want to live in that environment. Crops are going to be destroyed. No matter what side you're on, win or lose, you're going to know other people, maybe relatives, close friends, neighbors that got killed. It's not a good outcome even for the victor. Our superpower status is gone. Obviously, China, Russia, maybe a combination of both, are going to come in and probably finish us off for the purpose of conquering what's left. Because clearly, if there's a civil war going on and there's a side that is losing badly, I know a lot of my beloved liberals, my beloved MAGA rather, think that would be the liberals. Fair enough. Okay, so let's say the liberals are getting pounded. You think they're not going to accept help from the Chinese or the Russians if they're willing to supply them with weapons and things like that, a la Ukraine style? So obviously other countries would want to jump in because they have a vested interest in seeing the United States destroyed, seeing the United States fall apart. So we're going to do all this for Trump? Is that because, by the way, Trump is 78, so it's not like he's going to be around to celebrate it very long. He's already almost 80 years old. I really hope people are not suggesting we have a civil war on behalf of Trump. I mean, he is a 78-year-old individual. Look, I'm for democracy. If you believe the liberals are still in the election, we can certainly entertain that and try to do what we can to prevent anybody from stealing an election. But civil war is not the answer. It's just not. I mean, you've seen the Mad Max movies where everybody has to be a prepper. Is that the environment you want to live in, where damn near all of you've seen countries like Haiti and shit like that where all the land is all destroyed. Why would you want to live that way? Because we didn't like what happened to Trump? Really? All right, look it in the comments. Tap the screen, get the likes up to, we can go ahead and cross over the 100,000 mark, if you will. I think the U.S. will become second or third. Well, we would certainly become probably a third world country if that happened. Because like I stated, a lot of other countries have a vested interest in the destruction of America. So we already know Trump is stating that Iran is interfering with the election now. They want to see us fall apart. So it would behoove them, it would benefit them to play into the notion that the liberals are still in the election if you think you're going to be able to spark folks to do violent shit. If I'm in Iran, that's what I want to happen in America. If I'm in Russia, that's what I want to happen in America. Same with China. Because now once America is out of the way, we can do what we've always wanted to do. We can be the superpower. Our currency can be the world's standard. We can take all of the power that the United States used to have. While they're over there fighting on whether they like or dislike Trump, we're all becoming superpowers. So they all would want it. And at the end of the day, that's the only purpose. And well, we didn't like that Trump had the election stolen from him. So we just all decided to start killing each other. Wow. All right, let me go back to the box. I appreciate you folks that are tapping the screen. I can't pronounce the name there. Simaj. You're going to have to pronounce that one for me.
It's James.
James. Spelled backwards. There we go. All right, so Kamala Harris, what do you think of her?
I think she's the best thing since sliced bread right this second. I mean,
damn. Based on what?
Back together.
Huh?
I think that she's more about uniting the country after she wins the election. I mean, just great promise there, not continuing this divisionary type tactics that we've seen out of Trump and others. You know, it just, yeah, Trump scares me. He still scares me. He worries me. I mean,
what?
We won't have to vote no more.
But he did say that. But under Trump, folks are going to point out we had a great economy. There wasn't all kinds of conflicts all over the world. Why is Trump scaring you?
Because you can't predict what he'd do. He's an ego. I mean, he's egotistical, and he does what's good for his ego, and that's it. I mean,
what about he does what's best for the economy?
I don't think he does what's best for the economy. He's pandering to a handful of individuals and trying to win. If he would have done what was best for the economy, he would have let them raise the interest rates when the economy was doing good. And we wouldn't have got to this point where we had inflation and stuff hit us so hard. That's what people don't understand. I mean, he's probably the first president that I'm aware of that threatened the Federal Reserve, you know, that he would, you know, and we know the reason why we set up the Federal Reserve was to keep politicians from messing with the economy so much, because they destroy it over and over.
So you don't have any confidence at all. A lot of folks believe that if Trump gets elected, the price of groceries will drop. You can suddenly afford to feed your family again. You know, inflation. I mean, when you talk about the price of homes right now and the price of vehicles, it's skyrocketed. You don't think a Trump re-election would cure or fix any of that?
No, he's going to be worried about one KPI, and that's that GDP. He's going to want them to keep the interest rates low, which is going to keep the inflation going. You know, we have to pay for what we did to manage through COVID. And that part of that is increasing the interest rates again, get the money back out the economy. It hurts a little bit, but we got to pay the price, so the next time that things come up, we won't have that backup. We won't have that battery of energy to be able to survive it.
So then let me run this by you. Puppy Balls on YouTube, and that's the name Puppy Balls. Funny as name, but we run simultaneously on both platforms. Puppy Balls says, this guy thinks the country is better now? What the fuck? Do you believe the country is doing better off now under Biden than it was under Trump?
We are hurting because Trump held the interest rates low for so long. And we knew that the economists knew this was not smart. You know, but he had enough guff and enough pull to look at them and say, look, you won't raise the interest rate. If Trump would have raised the interest rate pre-COVID, when the economy was doing good, when the Federal Reserve wanted to, we may not have the inflation we got now.
And you feel confident that Kamala Harris would be good for the economy?
I believe so. I mean, she listens to the experts on the stuff. That's the biggest thing. Trump don't listen to anybody but Trump.
Yeah.
It does, once he gets stuck on something, it don't matter who tells him what's good or bad, Yeah,
there's no denying that Trump is his own best advisor. He's not going to take advice if he believes something is right. That is true.
Yep. And he thinks he's an expert on way too much. So.
Yeah, he often says, I know more about X than anybody else.
Yep. And he's always fabulous and grandiose and, when folks start talking about everything, I do everything fabulous and grandiose, you know they're lying about 90% of it. So
then how did he get,
99% of it.
as bad as you're painting Trump to be, how did he get 74 million votes?
Because he's, backing, these Christian nationalists and all these other guys and feeding into them and won't, doesn't really care about the Republic overall. So
I'm hearing that it is Trump. Trump is the one that cares about this nation. You're saying that they don't care about the Republic?
No, he don't care about our form of government. He wants to be a king. That's why he likes Putin. That's why he's setting up these authoritarian type things. Everything that he talks about points to an authoritarian type government and is leading up to authoritarian type government. I mean, our buddy Adolf had done this, Putin done this.
Wow.
All these folks done the same stuff. Military, immunity to the police, threatening to get rid of all the woke out of our armed forces and all this other stuff. Armed forces are not a political party. You know what I'm saying? It's not. But
why you're chastising Trump? Like Kevin Mitchell on YouTube says, Harris had 4 years to make a difference, and she and Joe engineered failed policies. How do you see the country being ran under Biden? You think he's doing a good job?
He could have done some things better, but we see that Trump stepped in on a lot of things to undermine the situation that's going on. And we've had a divisionist type mentality even out of our legislatures and stuff like that. I'm hoping Kamala can really come in, or Harris can really come in and unite those again. I don't want to continue to see failed Congresses. And by failed Congresses, I mean Congresses that don't come up with anything that's important to the people, So
then I got final question before I move on. Yellow on YouTube is saying TDS Bigley speaking. Did Trump do anything good in your opinion?
The only thing Trump did good, in my opinion, was the bump stock. And even in that, he kind of overstepped his.
Wow.
And then they turned around, the Republicans turned around and shot that down. So
the only thing Trump did good was banning of bump stocks temporarily. That's the only thing he did good in 4 years?
That's the one thing I'm aware of at this 90 seconds. So, and I do look for things like that, but that's the only thing that comes to my mind right off the top of my head.
All right.
He come in, he set us up where COVID could knock us completely out with removing, the folks that would have handled that early on and may have prevented it. He got rid of those folks, and all this other stuff, and then he couldn't make up his mind on COVID, and he turned that into a whole political arena, which it shouldn't have, none of that should have been political, Yeah. We should have been listening to the experts on it and not got tied up in all the politics on it. Now, I can't give the Democrats a lot of push on that, because if you remember when he first started talking about banning flights from China and stuff like that, they thought he was being all racist. Now, some of that is Trump's fault too, because early on that's exactly what he was doing.
Well, he was calling it the Kung flu. What was it? The Kung Fu virus or the Kung flu or something?
Yeah. And he started. He had already tried to pass racist type stuff like that before, So
do you see him
in the future?
You're using the R word. Do you see Trump as a racist in any way?
So a lot of his statements do lead to that old-fashioned type racism. We know that he had problems when he was in the housing industry and everything else. In the end, absolutely. But it's that old-fashioned, don't really mean to be that way, honestly. But it's just a mindset there, It's a mindset that sees that color, that and it's that us and them situation, and it's easy to divide folks like that.
Wow.
So,
all right, that's a bit depressing, James, but I appreciate you coming on,
good
man.
to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, James. All right,
Yes, sir.
moving on with the program. Wow, that's depressing. Haha, you're funny. What is it? Oh, Ash. Yes, he is racist. Remember the Brooklyn Five? That's Central Park Five. That's what you're talking about there. This says Global Ham or something like that. Let me move on with the program. By the way, I haven't solicited you folks to tap the screen. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone. So understand, folks, we go left of Bernie Sanders to him having dinner with QAnon. I don't know why my day audience leans more left and my night audience leans more right. I'm doing some lives in the evening. There's far more folks on the right in that audience, and on a day, it leans more to the left. So I don't understand why that's happening, but tap the screen, get the likes up to about 105. We can certainly make that happen. Smash that like button on YouTube. Understand we don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. So if you favor uncensored dialogue, feel free to follow the program on TikTok and subscription on YouTube, if you will. Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Central, 1300 hours is where you'll find us. Uncensored, MAGA friendly, have been that way since day one. We always will be. Continuing on with the program, just wondering that, is Kamala Harris the one? Are folks voting for Kamala Harris because they believe she could be an effective leader or just out of hatred for Trump? As my beloved MAGA would say, Trump derangement syndrome. So I want to find out from you folks. Go into the box. Ben, I think that says Sean Mario, I think that is. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Oh, wait a minute. What did I hear here? See the discrimination in your comments that thinks Democrats don't have jobs. Ooh. 11, I see that. That would suck. Give the box a chance to reset. We'll keep going. Vice President Harris is not the president. Vice President Harris is not the president of the United States, Obama. So you're saying Obama, Rodney A. Rodriguez, you're saying that Obama is still the president of the United States. He left office in 2016. So nearly 10 years later, Obama's still running the country. Really? Anyone can be effective, and anyone can be an effective leader. The mindset is all you need. Mario, you need to be able to unify folks. You need to be able to get people to listen to you. You need people to respect your authority. You can be a great leader, but if nobody thinks you know what the hell you're talking about, nobody may listen to you. So a perfect example. President Trump was the leader of this great nation, and what was his name? General Milley reached out to his Chinese counterpart and told them, don't worry that if Trump gives us some kind of wild order, we're not going to follow it. So obviously, General Milley did not see or respect Trump's leadership, even though what General Milley probably did could get him arrested. If Trump gets in power again, Steve Bannon has already said General Milley will be investigated. And if General Milley did what I believe he actually did, that's a crime. So under Trump's watch, if Trump becomes president, and my humble opinion is that it's not going to just end with General Milley. Steve Bannon, before he went into lockup, which is where he's at now, before Steve Bannon went to turn himself in, he named several people. I think Jim Comey, Fauci. So a lot of them folks, there's a lot of folks that are in high levels of government that probably are really behind the scenes begging for Trump not to win because they could go to prison. I mean, I think the Trump administration has made it clear that if they get elected again, they got some beef out there. Never be president again, says, I can't pronounce the name there, Sherelle or something like that. And I see the comments, good, says to care. General Milley will resign. It got nothing to do with resigning. It's a crime. What he did was a crime. You can't resign your way out of that. Yeah, you can go resign and go to the villages or whatever. We'll still send somebody down there to pick you up, send some MPs down there to arrest you. Did you hear Kamala's phone call to Obama's? She said, I'm looking forward to working with the two of you. That said a lot. That ain't saying anything. She could be working with them to raise campaign funds. She could be working with them on organizations they have. That ain't saying anything. And by the way, they would say the same thing if Trump talked about working with somebody politically as well. That ain't saying anything. The Obamas are involved in organizations, charities, and things like that. It could be a host of things. She could hire them as advisors. Doesn't mean they're running the country. That's kind of conspiratorial. Why Trump messed with the Obama policies? Because he believed Obama had the wrong direction for America. Let's try it again. Sean Mario. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program, Sean. Trump will take power back, says Melissa. If he wins, that will certainly happen. MAGA's always reaching. You all should prepare for World War III if Kamala wins. I just don't buy into that. I'll give the box is problematic today. I'm trying to bring up a guest, and it's giving me trouble time after time. In regards to World War III if Kamala wins, we were told the same thing if Biden won, if Obama won. I don't submit to Armageddon politics. I'll explain it to you. Sean, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. Apparently, we're going to go down the route to World War III if we elect Kamala Harris. What say you?
I think people get a little bit excited about things like that. We all know that if Miss Harris does take office, that it's going to be just like it would function the way that it should function. No one's going to get up and out of arms about anything. Everybody's going to calm down and toe the line as they should. I think people do just go a little off rails when it comes to that, but that's just how people say things.
What about if Trump gets elected? Would we be safer a bit more if Trump got? I mean, we've had Trump in for 4 years. Perhaps we'd be safer as a nation. Certainly, our borders. If Trump got reelected.
I mean, I don't agree with that at all. Trump has a lot of morality things that, like, if you're a decent human being, you'd be like, no, that's not the guy. He has so much bad stuff going on.
Wait a minute. I need you to elaborate on it. Give me an example of why a decent human being would look at Trump and say that's not the guy. That's strong stuff. Why would a decent human being not want Trump as president?
I think, like... first off, that's not a rhetorical question. It looks like it wasn't rhetorical.
Well, you said a decent human being would be like, no, that ain't the guy. So what is it about Trump that would make a decent human being say that? That is actually funny.
This is not a rhetorical question. You are aware of, like, the 34 counts felonies that he just got charged with. You are aware of there being more indictments pending, another one just released. You're aware of Eugene Carroll and the countless amounts of other things. Like that, to me, that's a morality type of issue. Like, as a man.
I'm aware of it. I am totally aware of all this. I'm assuming the whole audience is, but I just wanted to get clarity. Sometimes people say things, and then when they start speaking, you're like, what made them say that? But I'm understanding a little bit more. So you see Trump as just like an immoral character.
Yeah, I think Trump kind of sways with the crowd a little bit more. He tries to win the crowd over, and he's somewhat of people like to say he has his own mind. He marches to his own beat, but he pushes agendas based on where the money's coming from. If you follow the money with Trump, you're pretty much going to see where that's going.
I was under the impression that Trump, being a billionaire and a successful businessman himself, didn't need the money, cannot be bought. That's what I've always heard.
Well, I guess if you're not paying for certain things, certain services, if your lawyers haven't been paid, et cetera, if these things are happening, then perhaps you do have money to spend elsewhere. But that's another like morality thing when it comes to Trump. But if you're not paying the people in your life that are lawyers and professionals that earn their paycheck, it kind of reminds me of like when Black people came here to work for fucking free. It feels like free, yeah. So it reminds me of that whole like mindset. Someone brought up racist earlier, and I think he has a whole lot of unpacked racism and misogyny that he has to unpack.
I don't think anybody would question whether Trump is a misogynist. He's an alpha male, but you said racist. What has Trump done to make you suggest he's racist?
He finally denounced the Proud Boys or the white supremacy groups, right? He did finally denounce them, right?
Yeah, he denounced everybody from David Duke to Nick Fuentes. It took him a while to do it, but he did do it.
Well, Well, if you back people like that and you don't ask them to, stand back, stand by, and stand down, if you're doing things like that gives into that whole racist mindset. Also, I don't know how true it is. Someone could fact check me on that, but they said that his dad was a member of the Triple K societies.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I've heard that, but I will say this. My dad was a crack addict. I've never even done a wine cooler in my life. Never tried cigarettes or any drug. What your parents did doesn't have any reflection on you in terms of that. Even if his dad was a member of the KKK or whatever the case may be, that doesn't mean Trump is involved in that.
I think an organization that has so much that much draw, that much power, it's hard not to indoctrinate the people around you with that ideology, because it's a lifestyle more so than anything else. That's just like if you adopt a child of a different race as you, and they live in your house, they're gonna kind of go under the ways that you live your house, depending on what your race is. So I think something like that's so influential, because we live in a society that is based on white supremacy. Not saying that black people excuse me, black people don't have equal rights. I'm kind of saying that, but that's not totally true, because we do have the same.
So you sound like you believe that if a man is white supremacist or has hatred in his heart, his child is most likely to have the same mindset.
Most likely, more times than not. I think there definitely are outliers in that, because anything about life there's going to be nuance to it, especially when it comes to psychology. Someone can definitely see something and be like, ooh, I don't want to live like that. Yeah. And that goes back to the point where Trump could have just denounced white supremacy right then and there. All those groups, but he did not. He waited a second because he remembered his doctrine and his teaching, and he's still pushing that agenda today.
Yeah. Well, I will say this in regards to that question. I'm not for certain that his dad was even like that as well, but I just wanted to hear your opinion on that. So you think Kamala Harris is the one?
I think Kamala is Miss Harris is in office right now, working under the current president, and she has been for the past 4 years now. So she would be more. I'm sorry, let me get back outside. My environment's loud. I think she would have just a better way of transitioning into things. She's already on board for what's going on. I'm just under the strong impression that you should at least serve 2 terms. You should serve 8 years, because you don't see the effects of the first 4 years until the next president comes along. And now that we're coming.
Wait. Are you saying they should automatically just get 8 years?
I think the terms should.
You're going in and out. No audio.
Just because. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you said you believe they should just get 8 years in office?
I think so, because you don't really see the effects of the first 4 years ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but wait, hold on, hang on. But Sean, if you suck, I don't want to be stuck with you for 8 years. If you suck, I want to be able to get rid of you as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Unfortunately, if we elect someone, you can't just get rid of them that quickly.
Yeah, 4 years is 4 years is already long enough to be stuck with somebody that sucks. Now you're going to bump it up to 8?
Well, I mean, that's just my opinion, because you can't really see the effects of that presidency within that presidency. You always have to deal with the effects of the last presidency in the new term.
So let's go back to say 2018, 2019, when Trump was in his 3rd year. If he had came and told you, I need 8 years because you can't see the full effect with me possibly leaving office in another year, you would have been down with that. Let me hang around at least 2024 so you can see the effects.
Yeah, 18 and 19, because Barack Obama just did 8 years. He did 2 terms. And we saw that the economy was better under Trump because of what Obama did in his 2 terms. Because we saw the effects of his presidency. Now we're seeing how bad it is right now because of what was done in the previous presidency.
So after the
you're
giving them 8 years. After the 8 years, can they run again?
I mean, I guess that would be a people thing, if the people agree with that, I guess.
So you're gonna extend the length of presidency, basically.
I don't think you see. Do you think that you see the effects of the presidency as it currently is, or when they're gone?
I think you can see
the last president.
I do agree with you that there's some things they do that may take longer to realize, but sometimes you can make a bad decision and we can see it right away. We don't need to wait 8 years.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes it's obvious, it's obvious this is going down here real quick.
Yeah, I think when we re-elected George W. Bush in 2004, we already knew the Iraq War was a bad idea. We didn't need to give him 8 more years to figure that out. Sometimes in the first 4 years, something is wrong. We knew by 2004 that Iraq War was not it. That was a bad mistake.
Yeah, and as a veteran of OIF, that war definitely was senseless. It was horrible, and my heart goes out to all the brothers in arms that I lost, and anybody else who lost family in those wars.
Yeah.
And you're dead on about that. We saw that early on, quick, very, very quick. Ever since 9/11, we knew going into that was going to be horrifying.
Yeah.
So,
well, the minute we went into there and we realized the guy we're after is not even in this damn country, we knew it was a bad idea. I got to move it on, though, Sean. First time talking?
Yeah, you got to follow for me. I appreciate your content. This is really good.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
dialogue.
you. Don't be a stranger. You're always welcome back, man.
You bet.
All right, good talk. Looking in the comments, Obama stated that it would take a while for the economy to get back on path, and Trump messed that up for the middle class by lowering the taxes for the rich, period, says Blanche Robinson. There's people who agree with you on that. Some people agree, others do disagree. Democrats' logic can't make this shit up. Clown communism, says Ed G. I don't think the Democrats want the president in office for 8 years. I do believe that was something that was unique to my last caller. I don't think most Americans would want the president to get 8 years. Now, my last caller was correct, though. There are some things they do that it takes 2 terms to realize, the good or bad in it. But as I pointed out, there's some things that are so bad, you don't need to have them around for 8 years. And I would say that George W. Bush with the Iraq War, we knew in 2004 when he was going up against John Kerry that this guy has gotten us into some bullshit. He got 4 more years, and here we are now 20 years after he was reelected, and history has judged that war to be unnecessary. I don't think anybody looks at the Iraq War and points out all the good things it did for the United States. We lost, 6,000 troops died in that, not to mention how many folks in the region, probably as many as 1 million people in the region lost their lives for what amounted to an optional war. It didn't accomplish anything. Looking in the comments, Trump was halfway on ripping this country off. You think Trump's a billionaire, almost 80 years old. What would he was trying to rip the country off? Elaborate on that. They reversed Trump's policies even if it was good for the country. Look at the border. Puppy balls? That name. I don't disagree with you. I think we're starting to look at a couple of Trump's policies, not a lot of them, but a couple where the Democrats are realizing this one you should have kept. And obviously the border, the Democrats kind of dropped the ball on that, even up to where they tried to come with the bipartisan border bill, which was kind of rolling back the way liberals wanted the border to be. They were getting strict on it. Now, Trump wanted to win, so he wasn't going to accept any border bill because he wants the border to remain a mess. But nevertheless, it did take them 3 years to come up with that bill. That's a dig at Biden. It shouldn't have took that long. Looking in the comments, Hitler got rid of civil service. Trump wants to fire civil service. Says who? Why would Trump? Civil service, teachers, garbage men, fire department, Park district workers, transit. What would make you suggest that Trump wants to fire civil service? I have not heard that. By the way, folks, extra ecstasy. The audio you're hearing for the program, talking to my YouTube audience, is coming from TikTok. So yes, how do you get in? The audio is coming from TikTok. We're still working on getting the program so that a lot of my MAGA audience on YouTube can actually chime in. Real quick, since you brought that up, I will tell you folks, I found a way, I believe, so that I can actually interact with my YouTube audience, which is predominantly MAGA. MAGA's not a big fan of Chinese-controlled TikTok. Fair enough. Rumble. I have a Rumble account. Same thing, Handsome Liberal on Rumble. I would implore you to subscribe to that platform because I need a certain amount of subscribers. We're going to go live on that platform soon. So for you folks tuning in, the Handsome Liberal on Rumble, just briefly give a subscription to that. Once we get up to a certain amount, we can go live and we'll start taking callers on Rumble. I know a lot of folks from the MAGA side of the aisle are on Rumble, so I went for that. Project 2025 suggests they clear out civil servants and replace them with loyalists. Trump is claiming he has nothing to do with Project 2025. I'll leave it at that. By defunding social parks, all those people get fired. Wow. If you defund social, man, the country will be a mess. Let me go back to the box, the one and only Moo, the tuxedo cat. Good afternoon, Moo. Appreciate you holding on, by the way.
Man? What's going on?
Hey, not much. We're trying to find out. Kamala Harris, far more competitive than Trump. I think I know where you're going to go with this, but why is that? Far more competitive than Biden, rather. Why is she doing so much better against Trump than Biden?
So far, she's the only one who's talked about raising wages, man. I mean, forget about no tax on tips, man. Raising wages overall is better, especially the minimum wage, right? You should be trying to eliminate tips altogether. Tipping is bullshit, dude. That's a tariff on the consumer. Europe got rid of tips a long time ago. We should have done that too. Raising wages is the way you want to go.
Yeah,
all no tax on tips is going to do is allow stockbrokers to say, yeah, dividends are tips now, and now we don't have to pay taxes on dividends anymore. Yep.
I actually agree with that. That you shouldn't be able to pay the employees so low that they have to beg in the form of tips. When I went to Australia for dinner, real quick, that's a personal story. First time I went to Sydney, I had a steak dinner. After the dinner, I walked up to the waiter and gave him a $50 bill, and he's looking at me like, "What the hell is this for?" Because they pay their employees a good salary. He's looking at me like, "What is this for?" And it took his manager to tell him he's American.
That policy to you, you say you don't want that. You don't want that. I don't care who says it to you.
You don't want the tipping policy?
No tax on tips. I don't want tips. I don't want no tax on tips because there should be no tips. We should have got past that a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's getting to the point now where everywhere you go, I went to a Subway the other day. They made me a sandwich. You ring it up, they're asking you for a tip. Like everywhere you go now, people are asking for tips. You go to Dairy Queen, they ask you for a tip. Like it's getting crazy.
Yeah, the employees are telling you who to tip now, right? So, and that's because their bosses aren't paying them shit. Thank you very much, capitalism. We appreciate you. You've put another tariff on the consumer. Way to go, capitalism, man. Go capitalism, right?
So based on what you're saying, you don't sound like you think that Kamala would be that great for the economy. Well, you said raising wages, though. You did say
so. Here's the thing, right? If I was going to have someone write no tax on tips, I would rather have a Democrat write the legislation than a Republican, right? Because the Democrat's probably going to allow far less loopholes for the rich than a Republican would, right?
I do agree with that.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
All right. So at the end of the day, you think, okay, she's talking about, how can she raise wages, by the way? Can she force the employers to pay more?
I mean, I'll tell you how I would do it. I don't know how she's going to do it. I would actually do it through a tax cut, right? I would take anybody making $200,000 a year or less. I would cut their taxes in half, and then I would put that on the top 10% of the population so that my tax cuts are paid for and that I don't create any debt like Donald Trump.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if you can. I mean, but would that be a permanent force? I mean, by doing
permanent. That's permanent. Yeah.
It might work. I mean, There are so many folks in this country, though, that are against raising wages. And I see Gen X, it says, they ask me for a tip. I say I don't play with matches. Oh, my God. But so.
Well, I mean, me and Gen X are going to have to agree on this one, right?
So you don't tip either?
I tip at restaurants because those workers rely on those tips to live. I don't tip anywhere else.
What about ride sharing?
I don't do ride sharing.
You've never ridden in an Uber or Lyft?
Nah, man, I have a car.
Okay. Traveled out of town, go to the airport, never? Cab? None of that?
Usually I have my dad or my girlfriend's dad drop us off, man. Okay. I don't really do Uber or anything like that. Okay. Sorry.
I'm just asking.
I suppose. I don't know the norm for that type of job culture. I guess I don't know the norm for that.
Well, I'll tell you because that's what I used to do, a lot of ride sharing. I've been doing it off and on for a number of years. They desperately need tips because in the taxi business before ride sharing became a thing, tipping was quite normal, but Uber came along and discouraged tipping because they wanted to keep the employees having to continue driving because they don't want them getting paid right. Tip your ride share driver. I cannot tell you how important that is for folks that are watching. Not you because you don't use them, but there is very few people that tip, and those folks don't make a damn thing. So yeah.
I do tip DoorDash if that counts.
Yeah, that does count.
Does that count?
Okay,
so then yeah, I do tip them.
Yeah, just about any of the gig economies, they're not getting paid shit. Tipping is very important to those folks.
In that case, yeah, I would. So anybody who is unable to make minimum wage because they're getting tips, I would tip that person because they're relying on that to live, right?
Yeah, and that's in the gig economy is a perfect example. So, yeah. So folks say that Trump gave us a win. You got an echo? Okay, an echo came in. So folks are suggesting that Trump's economy was way better than Biden's, but it sounds like you would favor giving the economy back to Kamala.
Trump's economy was garbage, right? The only reason gas prices were low was because nobody was driving anyway. Let me put the argument like this, right? Because this argument is equivalent to theirs. I had a girlfriend under Biden, so I'm going to vote for Biden, but I didn't have a girlfriend under Trump, so I'm not going to vote for Trump. The president has as much control over whether I have a girlfriend or not over gas prices. Is that a good way to put it?
Well, they don't believe that. So in other words,
I don't care what MAGA believes, right? They're not smart people. I'm not worried about them.
Well, wait a minute, Moo. You said MAGA are not smart. There's nobody voting for Trump that's intelligent.
I haven't seen one yet. I talk to plenty of them too, just like you do. You know what I mean? And I have so much spare MAGA meat that I've cooked over here. You want some? Okay. I got a lot of cooked MAGA meat over here. You know what I mean? It's well cooked. It might even be burnt. What
the fuck is cooked MAGA meat?
So they come onto my live, right? And then they try to do gotcha things they talk about all kinds of stuff. I had one guy advocate a flat tax to me, right? But, I told him a flat tax favors the rich, right? Because let's say your flat tax is 18%, right? A person making $1 million a year at an 18% flat tax is still coming home with over $800,000 a year. Meanwhile, a person making $50,000 a year is only coming away with 41. And the higher you make that, right, the more it's going to impact the poor people and the less it actually impacts the rich people, especially if you don't get rid of tax loopholes and you do a flat tax. Now you're really screwing everybody over, right? But we can join countries like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. They all have a flat tax. What great economies, guys. Let's join Lithuania and Estonia with a flat tax. Russia got rid of their flat tax because it sucks dick.
Damn. And based on the way you just stated it with the math, I can't argue with that. That is a good point. That, the flat taxes go. But at the end of the day, isn't any tax going to be harder on the poor than the wealthy unless you tax the wealthy specifically harder to make it up?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point, right? This is why they want to do that, right? And Trump doesn't. If Trump was talking about a flat tax, which I assume that this is where it's coming from, I don't know of that for sure. He won't get rid of the loopholes that these people can use. So now you're going to be charging them less of a percentage in tax with a flat tax. You're not going to get rid of the loopholes. You're going to bankrupt the government, which is exactly what MAGA wants to do. They want the destruction of the federal government as it is.
Why would MAGA? Now, Trump does want the destruction of the FBI. He talks about that, but the destruction of the federal government, why would you think MAGA would want that?
Well, they want to get rid of the so for all the time I've been alive, right? Republicans in general, and particularly MAGA, right, want to eliminate departments like the Post Office, the Department of Education, the FDA, the EPA, the FCC, the FTC, right? And those are all civil employees, by the way. So when the person told you Trump wants to eliminate civil employees,
well said. Those are that is true.
So he is pulling a Schindler, right? He's definitely pulling a Schindler. Okay, so yeah, there you go, man. They want the destruction of the federal government. As it stands today, Trump wants an establishment, but he wants an establishment that only works for him. That's the type of establishment Trump wants.
Yeah.
Trump is pro-establishment, by the way. He bribed all the politicians to make all the laws over the past 50 years that are fucking all of you, just so you know. He's a lobbyist.
And the guy got 74 million. I don't know, Moon. You sure you're getting this right? 74 million folks voted for Trump.
I mean, when you say that, I'm just going to tell you that 80 million people voted for Biden.
You think
so they're the minority.
You think Kamala's going to get that same love?
Kamala's going to get 100 million votes, at least.
Damn.
You can, so let me tell you right now. You remember what I told you about the polls? Tell me I wasn't right. Tell me I wasn't right about the polls.
Yeah, but now you're talking 100 million.
So since you've known me and I've been on here, when have I been wrong? I said Biden should drop out and then the Dems are going to do way better. I said that the polls are going to start to shift slowly at first, as soon as Kamala picks her vice president. When have I been wrong yet?
I'm not hating, but 100 million. Damn.
She's going to get 100 million votes.
So you see a landslide for Kamala Harris?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. She's the real deal, my dude. She wants to raise wages. She already has an initiative in Central America that's decreased border crossings to the levels they were in 2021. All I hear from MAGA is the same wall bullshit and the same scare tactics on immigration. I heard it on the Elon Musk interview. He says the dumbest things I ever heard, my dude. He even said that H group is coming over here now. He mixed up H group with immigration to try and scare people. This dude is so lost and so ridiculous at this point. I'm amazed that even MAGA's not tired of watching this dude's jaw wag at this point.
So then let me ask you this. If you believe that Kamala, this is fascinating. If you believe Kamala's on her way to getting 100 million votes, are there some states that we normally consider red that Kamala may get if you had to estimate?
I'll tell you, man, if it was like 3 years into the future, no, I don't at this point. I think she'll get the majority of the battleground states. I think if it was 3 years into the future, that she would pull Texas.
Damn, really? You think Texas is going purple?
Well, you got all these people moving from California into Texas, right? That's what's turning the state blue. So 3 years from now, you're probably going to have enough of a liberal population in that state to flip it. I mean, if not in 3 years, a couple years after, but that is going to happen.
So MAGA's going to suggest that the liberals are moving and fucking up Texas?
Well, that's why they don't. That's why they always rag on. They're really mad about all the liberals moving into Texas, turning it blue. That's why they're really mad at California, right? That, and they're jealous that California has like the fifth highest, like it's the fifth largest economy in the world, right? It doesn't even need the rest of the United States to function, and it's run by a Democrat, which really pisses them off, right?
Wow.
It's like one of the best states in the whole union. We wouldn't make it without California.
Yeah, that fifth largest economy. So now somebody talked about what about Florida? Do you see Florida ever going purple? Ron DeSantis?
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. That is a tough call, my dude. That is a tough call. Not in the near future, no. Not in the near future.
But Texas in 3 years could be purple.
I'd rather have Texas than Florida, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I get that. I get that, but that's...
I am so in love with Jasmine Crockett, man. I would marry that lady. She is fabulous, man.
You just progressive than a motherfucker. I gotta move it on. No, move. For my liberal audience, you probably are the best thing they've ever heard of. Appreciate you coming through, though.
Oh yeah, man. You have a great one.
You too. 100 million votes for Kamala. What do you guys think? You think he's off his rocker? 100 million for Kamala Harris? You think she'll do that? Well, 100 million votes. Wow. They can't handle living in Cali anymore. Yeah, Cali's getting to be very expensive. 100 million votes. That's news. 100 million votes. Wow, that is. Now, I've said on the program before I get to that, though, tap the screen, get the likes up to about 140. Almost 1,000 of you. We should be around 140,000. We can certainly make that happen. Smash that like button on YouTube if you will. Get the likes up to about 240. Smash that like button. This is uncensored programming. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone. You don't have to be liberal. You don't have to be progressive. You don't have to be MAGA. We believe in free speech for all, and you can criticize the host. That's how it works. Real quick, is the super chats. I've worked logistics for 15 years. Cost of transportation was 45% cheaper under Trump. The price hikes you see today are coming from the pipeline being closed, says Cabin 365. Here's the issue, though, Cabin. I'm hearing the pipeline is pumping oil plentiful. I'm hearing that we're pumping plenty of oil. I'm hearing that the pipeline is not closed, but I do know that comes up a lot in regards to the criticism of Biden and energy. But I'm hearing that the pipeline is open. I'm hearing that we're pumping more oil under Biden than we've ever been before. Maybe I'm hearing the wrong thing, but I'm certainly hearing that America's pumping as much oil as they can pump. Looking in the comments, the ones who don't know male from female say rep are dumb. What do you mean? I don't get the part about say rep or dumb. I do get the part about the ones from female. And I'm assuming that's a Democratic dig on supporting the transgender community. Liberals are moving to get away from woke Dems. There is some of that. There's plenty of that. Angie, you're on point with that. There is some of that. When my car is down, I always tip Uber and Lyft 30%. Good on you, Angie. Like I said, I used to drive for ride sharing, and yeah, those folks, I mean, I used to do videos. Some of the trips taking somebody from point A to point B, you can get as much as, as low as $3 or some odd cents per trip. In fact, they had a bonus, and I went out and drove personally last weekend, and some of those trips are paying less than $4. I only did it because there was a huge bonus attached because I hadn't driven in a while. But yeah, Uber and Lyft drivers, if you will, not to get too far off topic, but just it's something that is near and dear to me. Next time you ride in a ride-sharing vehicle, look at what you pay and ask your driver what they're getting of that. Uber and Lyft often take as much as 80% of the fare. So if you ever found yourself thinking that these people are making a killing, they're not. They're not. Every trip, they're taking at least 40, but some places as high as 80% of the fare. And yeah, I agree with you in the comments, Troutman or Troughton, tip in cash. Tip them in cash. Because they don't always get the damn tips. Uber has had to settle out of court because they were stealing the tips from drivers. Remember, if you tip your rideshare driver through that app, Uber and Lyft has control of the app. The driver don't know what the hell you sent, and if they never receive a tip, they have no reason to ever think you gave one. A lot of passengers say, look, don't worry about it. I'll tip you through the app. I'll leave you something. And the driver just assumed you didn't leave it. They have no way to contact you to find out. I don't want to get too deep into ride sharing, but yeah, show your driver some love. It's a tough world out there, and I won't even get into how many of them get killed, raped, murdered, and all of that. Bree, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. If the box breeze are up.
Hello, liberal.
Hey, now Bree's an interesting caller because I've talked to her on a host of MAGA lives, and the statement was, did you say I'm a little hesitant? I don't want to say afraid, but I didn't want to bring you up as I think how you worded it. Am I correct?
Yeah, you've only let me up here one time.
Okay.
And that's when you first started coming on the app.
Okay, well, likely because I do get a lot of callers, so I didn't see you, but I think you thought that I was deliberately trying to avoid you or something like that.
Well, I figured if I said something, I might have a better chance.
Okay.
Because I've sat in the queue the entire time before. I don't know.
Okay. Well, like I said, unfortunately it happens. I do apologize for that, but like I said, we don't mind being criticized. I'll give you the floor with the simple question of, what have I said that's wrong? Go ahead and tear into me. Let me know what I'm getting wrong.
Well, there's been times that you've said stuff that's a little, I don't know. I'm not one to spark off the whole, Civil or World War III thing, but, bringing it up sometimes, it's, I watched your comments go crazy.
What do you mean the World War III thing? What do you mean by that? Elaborate.
Like you just talked about it today.
And
bringing up that, and I think that's not something we should really worry about too much because it's an election year. They're not going to let that pop off.
You do realize the reason I brought it up is because a viewer stated that if Kamala Harris is elected, she's going to take us into World War III. I was responding to somebody.
Yeah, and they said that about Trump, and they said it about Obama, and they said Bush was starting it too. I mean, people are. I don't know how to put this. People, I'm not going to say just a certain side, but a lot of people are ignorant. A lot of people are very fearful, and I don't know why.
But I'm trying to.
I've also heard your abortion topics, and you know how I feel about that. You've come into LJ's live.
Tell me what I got wrong.
So, and you know my stance on that.
Tell me what I got wrong, though.
Like, do you have a pen and paper so you can write this down?
Tell me what I got wrong.
Write down 18 U.S. Code.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Subsection 1841.
Okay.
This is law. And if we're going by everybody's metrics on both sides, because they both say it, it's bipartisan because both sides got it in, regardless of how many of each. It's there. They compromised on basically Roe with that. Okay.
You're telling me that when Roe versus Wade was rolled back, it was done through a compromise?
No. This was in 2002. This is why the federal government has no play in it. They don't tell anybody this. And I'm just like, to me, I don't like looking stupid. And the fact that Kamala is running on that makes me feel stupid.
Wait a minute. You're saying this happened in 2002. So in 2002, did anything change to a woman's right to have a pregnancy termination in America? Did anybody have a difficult time being able to terminate a pregnancy in America in 2002?
I mean, most of those quote unquote trigger laws, minus some of the newer ones like Texas, Texas happened right before Roe. So, and Louisiana happened right before Roe, which caused Roe to fall back to the states.
But was any changes made in 2002?
Laws were already laws in the states, and they have to abide by that because all the federal government does through Medicaid and Social Security Act is basically dictate what they can and can't do, and they couldn't pay for elective ones through that anyways.
Okay, but
and that's for the Social Security and Medicaid Act.
But you're not. Did any changes? If I was a woman wanting to terminate a pregnancy in 2002 before 18 U.S. Code subsection 1841, did anything change for a woman that wanted
nothing changed with that.
Right. Did anything change during the Trump administration with the Supreme Court?
No, they just said that you need to go put it at the state level now and make them deal with it because they deal with your Medicaid, basically.
Okay, so if I'm in
a dictates to anybody that accepts it.
So if
they have to follow those.
So when Trump allowed the Supreme Court or put in the Supreme Court justices that rolled it back to the states, did anything change at that point?
It allowed the states to actually, their laws came back into play if they wanted them to, but that's the people.
So now we're talking change then.
They gave you a perfect ruling, ladies, from the Supreme Court saying that it wasn't their job at that level. It's not their job at the state level either. And some of these states that people actually, like Alabama, some of them are like, oh, well, we need to, get rid of it because it's too stringent. But if you look at their constitution, they protect it as well as the unborn child, just like the code I gave you. That code is a federal code saying that if the baby is wanted and you harm, we're going to say that, or unalive, I guess, a mother and the baby, you're going to be charged double. Okay,
hang on one second. Hold on. I'm responding to Hubert Cummerdale. I will respond to your super chat in just a moment. Go ahead. Your name is just says 21. Go ahead, Bree.
It's Bree.
Yeah.
And then if you scroll down, okay, it says that you can't be charged for having abortion or anybody that performs said abortion. But then if you scroll down to the very last one, little d, it does tell you that the government recognizes a baby in utero, a child in utero, as a human being, a child, a baby, at any point in gestation. They already compromised with us at that level. So now it's up to us at our state levels to do it. It's still law.
Okay,
Nothing's replaced it.
Let me make sure I'm getting clarity. So But before Trump, if you were in the state of Alabama or Mississippi somewhere and you got pregnant and you wanted to terminate that pregnancy, you could do it. After Trump, his appointment to the Supreme Court and them changing the rules, giving it back to the states, you could no longer do it in some states. Do you believe that Trump is responsible for some states?
All of the states have exceptions.
Hold on, hang on.
I don't know.
We're not talking about exception. We're talking about you used to be able to do it just to do it. So it's changed at least to some degree where now it has to be an exception for some traumatic event. I'm asking you, in regards to the states now using their rights to ban it in some states or whatever you want to call it, do you blame Trump for that happening at all?
No, I blame everybody up, and including him. I guess I would say, for not telling us. Maybe he didn't know because he's not been in there with all the other 50, 30, 20-year politicians. So I give him a little more grace than them. I mean, he gets about the same grace as AOC gets.
So Trump is not, women who are saying that they no longer can terminate a pregnancy, you're saying Trump is not to blame for any of that?
No, because it's not the federal government's job.
Okay, but before Trump, the federal government was allowing them to do it, right?
No.
Before Trump, they could do. Before Trump,
had to abide by the states.
Okay, before Trump, you could terminate a child in all 50 states. Is that correct?
With the guidelines of the state.
I'm just asking. Before Trump, was there states?
With the guidelines of the state, they never could. No.
Okay, were there any states before Trump got elected? Were there any states in the union where you could not have you could not terminate a pregnancy?
There's no states now that you can't not do it.
Yeah, there is. You had a 10-year-old in Ohio that had to leave and go to Indiana. The 10-year-old that was
crazy because they have it in their constitution that it's protected. She could have had one.
Okay, so this 10-year-old just left and they didn't have to.
Yeah, it sounds like that other TikToker. That story sounds like the story of the TikToker that was in Tennessee that flew to New York, which was dumb if she really did that because she could have just literally drove 4 hours to Illinois.
So according to you, there is no abortion ban in any state in this country.
There are limitations on the doctor, not the people.
What the hell does that mean? If a woman wants to terminate hold on, hang on.
People at that level.
If a woman, okay, let me clear this up.
Because I want women to be informed on this.
I'm not talking about the doctor. I'm asking you this: if a woman wants to terminate a pregnancy, is there any state in the union that would prevent her from doing that?
No.
So she can terminate a pregnancy any state in the union.
Yes, it's available. And if she goes after, then maybe she might have to go out of state if she wants an elective one.
Why would she go out of state if it can? Why would she go out of state if it can be done in every state?
If it's past the time that they've put on the doctors to not perform one, because they're controlling the doctors because of the money, that's how they do it. Through Article 1, Section 8, liberal. Write that down so you can go look at whatever.
I already got it written now. Were the doctors being controlled before Trump?
Yes, they're always controlled. They were controlled through Medicaid, Medicare, and your Affordable Care Act and Social Security.
I gotta say, you're the first person I've ever heard explain the changes to abortion in this manner. I've never heard someone say that.
It's all controlled through the Commerce Act. That's what I wanted you to know.
Then I have
to. Was Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, which is how Congress, if you look at any bill, unless it has to do with foreign affairs, they usually cite that one to change anything, and they're not changing it to enforce it on people. They're enforcing it on another entity, like your doctor's offices, your hospitals, your
They're enforcing what?
Grocery stores.
They're enforcing what on people? What are they enforcing on doctors?
Their laws. Their laws are it's not for the people. They're enforcing it through a Commerce Act, which means they have to go through somebody doing business. They can't do business with us because we're just average private citizens. So what they do is they control, the medical equipment. They do it with 2A too. That's how a lot of states get away with controlling 2A and what you can and can't purchase. Why? Because it's money.
I just want to respond to. I saw one of my YouTube viewers. Sierra said this caller is a bot. You're not a robot, are you? So
you baited me in LJ's live. I'm not a bot. Okay. I'm more informed about what's going on because I'm not panicking, and I hate to see women panicking. And it seems like for any woman they have put up there, including Sarah Palin, because I didn't like that dingbat either. Okay?
Yeah.
I will tell you, I learned my lesson voting for Obama from a blue state. He came from my state. I voted for him, and I didn't vote again until 2020 because they keep putting up the same old mothball stinky suits.
Any idea? Okay, based on what you're saying, at least that's the obvious question. Any idea why Trump is taking credit for rolling back Roe v. Wade if what you're saying is true? Why is he doing that?
That's a Supreme Court appointment.
A Supreme Court appointment for what? According to you, the woman can do this anywhere. Why is Trump out here? What is he taking credit for doing?
Appointing the Supreme Court judges that finally said that it wasn't codified and that it needs to go back to the states because they have, one, that act I just gave you to go look up, and two, they can't write law. That's Article 3. They can't write law. United States Constitution.
I get that. I get that they can't write law, but I don't get your suggestion that no state has banned the termination of a pregnancy. The 10-year-old that left from Ohio didn't need to leave. He could have done it anyway. I haven't heard that.
It's in their Constitution. Go look up the Ohio State Constitution. You'll find abortion in there, and it even gives you the details.
So in the Ohio State
Constitution, Maryland.
So in
they've got it on your ballots.
So in the Ohio State Constitution. So you're saying the Constitution of Ohio protects a woman's right to choose. They actually have a constitutional right to do that in Ohio.
Yeah, it's protected in Ohio's Constitution. Alabama has it in their Constitution.
Why the hell would a evangelical Christian-based state like Alabama put the right to terminate a pregnancy in their Constitution? You really telling me that?
They just verbatim basically put the Unborn Children's Act in there.
And it gives a woman...
a woman won't be charged to have an abortion.
You're
telling
me...
charged for having one. They just put stipulations in there that would, one, basically, acknowledge that it's an actual baby, because, a lot of the left and progressive women don't want to actually acknowledge it's a baby, but the government has to acknowledge it's a baby, so they compromised.
I started this conversation off Bree with asking you to tell me what I did wrong. Look, I'll never run from you. I'm going to bring you up first.
And bring this up. So I finally get a chance to tell you exactly why I don't agree with you on it.
Bree, I think no one agrees with you on this. I think everybody...
And you cannot agree with me on it, but that's fine. If ignorance is bliss for everybody, and they want to be in their emotions and feelings, and nothing ever gets done about it, then that's my problem.
Right.
I'm tired of stuff not getting done and people not understanding why, because that's what made me mad at Obama.
Okay. The idea, though, that Alabama has in their Constitution protecting a woman's right to choose, I've never heard somebody say that. You're the first I've ever heard say that.
I don't care if you want to have your abortions. You can have them. Have them till your womb falls out. I don't care. My kids don't have to play with yours then.
Ooh.
I don't care.
Well, if she terminated,
can't push that ideal on my kids, I guess.
All right.
But
fair enough.
Me personally, I didn't choose it for my kids. I was offered it because my son had a birth defect. I had 20 minutes to choose whether or not to keep him or not. Okay, 20 minutes is all the doctor gave me.
I'm not a woman, so I'm not gonna. I'm not a woman.
I am not gonna take away anybody's right to choose it. Do it. Pay for it. If it's an elective, pay for it by yourself. That's all I'm saying. If it's elective,
well, according to you, a woman hasn't lost any rights at all.
You can have your elective ones. If it's past the state's date that they make the doctors abide by, either one, sue the state constitutionally, like they did with Roe. Okay, just like they did with Roe. You win regardless because they gave you the perfect ruling to keep the state out of it. Okay, and get your stuff. Okay, and then two, your other option until then is to just travel to the next state. Just my state's putting in the fast lane for them, so
right.
I don't agree with it, but they're putting in a fast lane.
All right, Bree, I got to move it on. Look, anytime come back through, clearly there's no dodging you of any sorts. Certainly with a conversation like that.
Me.
Huh?
Your comments hate me.
Yeah, nobody agrees. Hey, I can't control the comments. Just like I let you speak uncensored, folks in the comments get the same authority. I got to move it on, though. Appreciate it, Bree.
All right. Well, you have a good day.
You
I'll
too.
talk to you later.
You too. Wow. I've never heard that before. Looking in the comments, though, Ed G says, why is it that everyone Democrats say is pregnant is a 10-year-old or a mother who is going to die if she has the baby and not bring up all the horrors? I'll go back to my other super chat that I forgot, so I'll address your comment next. But Angie, you make a good point. Now I'm not a woman. I don't want to get too far gone on this, but I do believe most pregnancy terminations do not have anything to do with, the health of the mother, rape or incest or any of that. But they bring up these extreme examples for sympathy purposes, to tug at the heartstrings, because if you ban it, you do put those folks in the same category. But I agree with you 100%, Ed G. Just like you folks on the right, like talking to you, Ed G, every immigrant is here to rape or murder somebody. Same type of politics. You're using extreme examples to make a point. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just simply saying that is how it works on both sides of the aisle. When you're trying to promote something, promote a policy, you use extreme examples to make it work. Think about Biden's economy. Think about the right when they talk about Biden's economy. What examples do they use? The price of eggs when it went up like 10 times. You use extreme examples to get your point across. So when it comes to pregnancy termination, they're going to bring up women that have been sexually assaulted and women that may die if they're forced to keep the child. Just like when you bring up points on illegal immigration, you're going to bring up an immigrant that has literally been living like Jeffrey Dahmer or something. You're going to find the worst of the worst to make your point. That's how politics works. Going back to a couple other earlier comments, I didn't want to forget a super chat, says, this was earlier when we talked about the Iraq conflicts. Hubert Cummerdale says, people, there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Bush lied. There weren't, because Saddam hid them in hidey holes all over the place, and they worried bad guys find them. Well, here's the issue. There are weapons of mass destruction in a bunch of countries. America doesn't have a right to go tell other countries what they can and cannot have. We have weapons of mass destruction here. So if he's not using them to harm people, you can't go to some other country and say, we want to have all the weapons and you can't. But at the beginning, we originally were told first they had weapons of mass destruction, then bin Laden was there. The way it was done was never honest. I just want to point it out like that. And we didn't accomplish anything there. We took out Saddam Hussein, left a huge power vacuum there, and just caused a lot of people to get killed. A lot of folks will tell you, look, Saddam wasn't the best leader, but at least when he was here, he had the country in check. Perfect example, I'm from the south side of Chicago. You used to have what they call like high-level drug dealers selling weight, and all of that type of shit. So what they did to make sure they could continue selling their product and making money, they didn't want a lot of petty crime happening in the neighborhood. I don't want you messing up my business by bringing the police into the neighborhood. Well, what did the police do? 1 August, I believe several years ago, they went around and arrested all the high-level drug dealers. So now you got nothing but a bunch of lower-level people all fighting to be the high-level guy again. And that's where Chicago has remained ever since. It's a far more violent city when you took out the criminals that had all of the lower criminals in control. That's what happened in Iraq. Saddam Hussein was no angel, but the country was better off with him than without. And Angie says, why? Yes, I didn't mean to skip your chat there, Hubert. Thank you. Continuing on with the program, though, in every city, taking out the power structure, even if the person is corrupt as hell, has consequences. There's a lot of other people, low-level thugs, that want to be that high-level guy. That high-level guy is preventing that from happening. Chances are that high-level guy has a bunch of cops on the payroll and all of that shit. If you take that one guy out, it creates a power vacuum. Everybody in the city's fighting and doing all kinds of shit. Sometimes it's better off leaving that guy in than taking him out. You got to look at it that way. Real quick in the comments, Dumb Donald 2024 out. Has yet to be seen. I'm pretty sure that we have treaties with some countries that ban them from having weapons of destruction. But we didn't have a treaty with Iraq. We kind of forced them to do it. Same thing with Trump getting rid of the treaty we had with Iran. So once Trump got rid of the Iran deal, it was like, now we don't want you to have, because Obama makes this deal, we'll do all of this for you if you don't develop nuclear weapons. Trump comes in and said that's a dumbass deal. We're going to take away all of the things that the U.S. was promising to give them if they didn't develop a nuclear bomb. We're going to take all the things away from the U.S. and just tell them, if you do it, we're going to kill you. Under Trump, the deal was broken, and Iran was just told, don't have a bomb or else. We're not going to give you anything. You're just not going to do it, or we're going to hurt you. And that doesn't always work. Trump wanted to lead by fear and force, not by making deals. Either you do what I say do, or I'm just going to wipe you out. Z-Pack, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Absolutely, the Iraq War was bad, but it was one thing Bush did was to take that on the chin. Everyone calling him a liar. They were worried about it. Well, even to this day, Hubert, no one judges the Iraq War as a success or even necessary. Z-Pack, good afternoon.
What's up?
Hey.
What's up, dude?
Now, we're looking at
Hey.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so like when you go into bad echo chambers, that's the kind of shit you get.
You're talking about my last caller.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. She's basically saying that Trump did nothing to women's right to choose.
Of course not. He does no wrong, right? He's their worldly. He's their Orange Caligula, as I call him, right? And so like they love him, and they're gonna defend him to the ends of the earth, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. He didn't do that. No, we can't blame him for that. It's up to the states. Why would the president have any responsibility for anything? We don't do that.
Yeah, and I see somebody. USA was the only country to use a weapon of mass destruction. I agree with you there, SGD. Certainly with Hiroshima and Iraq, but I will in Nagasaki. I will say this though, in talking to you, Z-Pack, the notion that women have not lost the right to choose, that is a useless argument. Women know what they fucking lost. I can't imagine somebody in 2024, and I see a lot of MAGAs even in the comments saying women did not lose any rights. The right is gone. If you live in Miami, you got to drive maybe 1,000 miles. If you live in New Orleans, you got to drive hundreds of miles. We're to the point where we're telling women, well, if you want the right to choose, you need to uproot your family and move. And you're telling me that women hasn't lost any rights? I can't believe people are trying to say this.
Well, this is why they're losing elections everywhere. So like anytime there's an issue for the right to choose on the ballot or whatever it is, they're losing. And they continue to double down on this, and they're going to lose again. And so like they wonder like how could Joe Biden have won from his basement? Well, because
far-right policies.
Amy Coney Barrett was appointed to the Supreme Court when Merrick Garland was not allowed to, and so they came out in big numbers. And then 2022, it came up again because the Supreme Court decided that, well, we're going to send it back to the states. And she says she voted for Obama, and that's fine. But a lot of people that voted for Obama got confused when it came to government and how it works. Obama was at the mercy of a lot of people who did not like him. They in his own party. And then you had people on the Republican side who did everything in their power to make him a one-term president. So
somebody said that on the House floor that they were going to make it. Yeah, somebody actually said that.
Yeah, so you've got issues with that going on. So then they think, well, he didn't get anything done that he promised, therefore he wasn't effective. And so that's exactly what the mentality is with the Republicans and individuals who say they voted for Obama but then voted for Donald Trump. Makes no sense at all, because if you followed what he did, you wouldn't have and what he faced you would have understood why he didn't get anything done. It's the same thing with Joe Biden, because Joe Manchin was in power.
Yeah.
He had the ability to say, nope, not doing that, not going to end the filibuster. And let me tell you this, when Democrats did have power and they were doing the thing with Obama where they weren't letting him appoint judges, the Harry Reid said, well, we're not going to play this game anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the filibuster on judges. And then that came to bite him in the ass when it came to Republicans. Yeah. So Joe Manchin's argument was, we're not going to get rid of the filibuster for legislation either, because then we would be having drastic changes in legislation every year.
Joe Manchin is what the Republicans refer to as a rhino. I mean, he even for a short time contemplating going Kennedy and actually getting in the election to offset the Democratic numbers. Joe Manchin, he might as well go by way of Tulsi Gabbard or Kristen Sinema and just lead the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and I mean, the problem, though, is if he leaves the Democratic Party, they lose the majority.
Right.
So that was the whole thing, and that's one of the things that Joe Biden did a marvelous job of. People don't give Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and everybody credit because they got those individuals to stay in line and do a lot of things, get a lot of legislation passed when there was no ability to do that.
Yeah. Joe Manchin probably cost Biden a lot of achievements that he could have had. Joe Manchin was a big thorn in Biden's side.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what we faced, and then you have people on this app who just spout the nonsense like your last caller. And I've heard her in lives. I've seen her. I mean, she hangs out in there. I'm glad she's out of her echo chamber. I'm glad she came here to talk to you. That's important.
Yeah. But she said she's done it before, and she said I was deliberately dodging her. And I'm like, I don't dodge anybody. I just didn't see you in the comments. I don't run from anyone. You can criticize me all day long. Maybe sometimes you're right and I'm wrong, but I don't run from anyone.
Yeah, I mean, and look, she has her own opinions. She's entitled to her own opinions, but the things that she's saying are not accurate. There's no information that says that any of that is true. And regardless of what you think, when it comes to how Kamala is doing, her name is Kamala, by the way. It's pronounced Kamala.
But you said Kamala real quick. A super chat I had on YouTube. Ed G says yes, cause Kamala, Cumala, Kamala a few weeks ago about who they is knew nothing about who now is somehow a savior. Yeah, they pronounce Kamala name camel toe. I get a lot of very interesting changes to her name.
They'll continue to do that, and that's why Kamala is now rising in the polls because they don't have a message, and Donald Trump's team is underwater, and they've got two people on the team right now who really should be fired. Chris Levita and or Lasita, I think his name is, because his campaign is just out of control.
Wow. You think JD Vance is going to get a full ride? You think he's going to keep him there, as opposed to maybe replacing him with somebody else? Because J.D. Vance is not adding supporters to the Trump ticket. He was going to get evangelicals in Ohio anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the difference between what Kamala did,
right,
and what Trump did. Because, like, Kamala was getting backlash because she was going to choose Josh Shapiro to be her running mate. Josh Shapiro would have been a guaranteed victory in the election. If she picks him as VP, Pennsylvania's won. It's over with. Trump has no chance.
I don't know. With all of them, with the progressives hammering them on, they're so busy. You're so busy focusing on Israel and the Palestinians. I don't know.
Right. That's my next point. She listened to the progressives and chose Tim Walz because that's who they wanted. They wanted Tim Walz, so they went with Tim Walz. They went with him. The smart choice would have been Shapiro, because Shapiro brings in independents, Republicans. Doug Mastriano made Josh Shapiro who he is, because Doug Mastriano was MAGA. He was an insurrectionist. He was a guy who was at the Capitol. He was the guy that Shapiro ran against in Pennsylvania for governor.
Insurrectionist, that was a peaceful protest. It was a love fest. Are you talking about January 6th?
You got to stay on the right side of TikTok, not the right side of TikTok, but you got to stay on the side of TikTok that isn't, you know.
Okay, I'm learning.
Infested. Yeah, worm infested. I mean, we're talking about now a guy, to the Kennedy folks too. I mean, you got a guy who literally had a worm in his brain and put a bear in a park. I mean, realistically, Kamala is the best choice. It's the best choice, and she will win because the abortion issue is still going to matter. It matters, and it will matter until the Republicans figure out that it does. They're losing on that issue. And
if you got, and by the way, Tom, I seen your super chat on the economy. I will address that shortly. If you got folks on the Republican side of the aisle that don't even believe a woman has lost the right to choose at all, of course they're not going to figure out that abortion matters. My last caller don't even believe they lost any rights.
Well, because Trump can do no wrong, and this is kind of the problem with Trumpism, because if you see Donald Trump right now on television, you see a man who is actually going through some sort of psychosis. I mean, he keeps talking about Hannibal Lecter. He really believes that insane asylums are actually sending people over like Hannibal Lecter. He thinks that is true. He can't stay on message. He goes on Elon Musk platform on X. He sounds like Daffy Duck. I mean, he goes to the National Association of Journalists, of Black journalists, and it says that Kamala turned black. I mean, without parody, this is what this man is doing, and you wonder why you haven't won an election since 2016. You wonder why.
Bro, he feels confident he's going to do this one. I got to move it on, no Z-Pack. Moo, I don't know if you heard Moo earlier. He believes that Kamala's going to get 100 million votes. You think that's possible?
We'll see. I think here's what I will say, Tim, and then I'll leave you with a Trump sign off. But what I'll say seriously is to the Democrats here, we need to vote overwhelmingly. Do not look at the polls. Yes, she's doing very well. She's winning now, but we have to make sure that it's not like 2016, because people in 2016 saw the polls, stayed home. We have to make sure this is a referendum where it's like the biggest slap to MAGA and they're gone. Like he has no way to ever come back. So like that's what I would say. And to get 100 million votes, that might be a little hard because
that's going to be very hard.
81 million is we had weeks of early voting for. But I don't think Donald Trump is going to get more than 58 million. So I really don't.
Well, then if he only gets 58 million, he's going to. He got 74. I mean, that's a big drop.
I think he'll get. Best he'll do is probably like 60 mil. Right. Oh. He's not nearly as popular, and a lot of his voters are no longer alive because they lost their lives to COVID. So, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I know I don't mean
that's cold as hell. That's cold.
And also they're old and they're, getting older. And I mean, we have the momentum right now. We're doing so well. If you look at what they did, Tim, is it Tom? Can I call you Tim? It's a great job. You've got a hat back there. We love the hat. Now, I noticed you've moved it back further. You might be embarrassed, but it's okay. Okay, we're doing so well. And if you do what I do, and I co-host the Michael Cohen show, you can definitely see that. I'm on there almost every night, and we talk about things, not to promo myself, but we're doing so well, Timothy. And can I call you Timothy? Actually, hold on. I'm on the call with Elon Musk. Respect our flag, okay? Do that and do it well, please, okay?
Oh,
so we're doing well. Thank you, Tim, and you have a great day.
Thank you,
and
Mr. President.
To smile, okay?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure talking to you. All right, moving the program. That is the one and only Z-Pack. By the way, I enjoyed talking to Z-Pack for the simple thing is he hooked me up with Michael Cohen. I actually interviewed Michael Cohen some weeks back, right before he was going to testify during Trump's trial, the one he's now been convicted of. But the night before, I think it was the night before Michael Cohen was going on, or soon before that, and I I asked Michael Cohen a lot of questions that Michael Cohen didn't like. Z-Pack would tell you that. Because Z-Pack was like, I wish, he said he thought twice about bringing me up. But that's what I do. I'm going to ask the tough questions that I believe people want to know. You know, I understand everybody in the forum probably was favoring Michael Cohen, thinking he was going to help take Trump down. I ask what people want to know. I mean, how can you get up here and say Trump has done all this stuff wrong when you just did time in prison? I mean, yeah, his eyebrows went up, but he answered the questions. Shout out to Michael Cohen. He did answer the questions. He stated that I was no tougher than testifying before Congress. And I see somebody say you grilled him. It was thumbs up. Thank you. Real quick, I wanted to respond to a super chat. In 2023, this is from Tom, says in 2023, the United States ranked 103rd of 149 ranked countries for inflation, with 102 being higher. Was Biden responsible for inflation and the cost of goods in the United Kingdom, Finland, France, Norway, Mexico, Poland, etc.? No. And that is what the liberals, the left side of the aisle, was pointing out. Inflation has went up everywhere. It's not just something that's happening in the United States. It's a global phenomenon. But I understand what happens in this country, what happens under the watch of whoever's president. They're going to get the blame for it, whether it is their responsibility or not. And I tend to feel the same way. I always say, when you're the coach of a team, the wins and losses fall with you. You missed the tackle. At the end of the day, if you are you get the blame. Just like even if you gave bad calls as a coach, told them to do bad plays, but somehow the team made it work and you win a championship, they're going to credit you as the coach for taking the team to the promised land. So whether it's good or bad, if you are in charge, the accolades or the insults fall upon you. That was one of the issues I often had with President Trump, is that President Trump took credit for all of the good things that happened under his watch and blamed the coaches and blamed the quarterbacks and all the lower level players for everything bad, such as Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci is an advisor. He's a virologist that gives advice. He doesn't make any laws. He doesn't pass any legislation, yet he's being blamed for social distancing, wearing masks, and all of that shit. He can't make any of that a reality. All he can do is say, my personal analysis is you should social distance, you should wear a mask, you should wash your groceries off, whatever advice he's giving, that's all it is. It's advice. Yet President Trump and many on the right was blaming the advisor, not the people that was actually implementing it. That makes no sense at all. If you receive bad advice, you get no blame for implementing it. At some point, it's on you to find somebody else that's giving you better advice. And I say that in regards to President Trump, he's blaming a lot of people under him for different things. Nothing was his fault. It was just all these other people under him. I will give Biden credit for saying the buck stops with me. Because as president, that's how it should be. You don't get to blame everybody else. That's not how it works. What's the purpose of having you here then? Yo, Unc, how we gonna take our country back? Says made me smile. So many Unc means Uncle Tom. I get it all the time. You can't take your country back from who? Nobody has your country. Country's controlled by your fellow brothers and sisters, other Americans. You take it back from who? I never understood. We're going to take our country back from who? Looking in the comments, I agree with everything you say. A criminal is a criminal, and he can't get his thoughts straight. Appreciate that comment there. Nevertheless, folks, I do appreciate the 159,000 likes. Wow, I do appreciate that. And somebody asked, well, when are you going to bring up MAGA? My caller before the last one, the one that said that women have not lost any right to choose, that was MAGA. That was certainly MAGA. It's your boy Tim, 1 p.m. Central, 1,300 hours Monday through Friday is when you'll find us here. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone. So if you favor civilized dialogue from all sides of the aisle with no censorship, follow the program on TikTok and subscription on YouTube, if you will. 1,300 hours. See you tomorrow. It's your boy Tim, the Handsome Liberal. I gotta go. Thank you also on YouTube. Real quick, looking in the comments here. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Real quick, when Biden said the buck stops here, he was talking about bribes and responsibility. He's taking credit. I'll just leave it at that. He's taking credit for things that went wrong under his administration. Period. Trump never did that. Anything that did not go right under Trump's administration was somebody else's fault. Not once did he ever say, my bad. Everything that happened that people had an issue with under Trump was either it was taken out of context, or it was somebody else's fault, or it was the media brainwashing you into believing it. If you listen to Trump, he literally had a perfect administration. Nothing went wrong. I don't buy into it. I don't think nobody's ever had a perfect administration. So in regards to that, I will say thank you folks for tuning in. And of course, I'll see you folks tomorrow at 1 p.m. Subscribe to Rumble, the Handsome Liberal. We're going to go live with you folks as soon as I can make that happen.